Hey, you guys. Stay with me as I get past my shyness. You know it happens. Man, I didn't realize it had been so long since I had been on camera. So I always have to force myself to hit the live button. But check it out. I'm coming here to tell the actual breakdown of the one the world knows as Prince Rogers Nelson. It's not an easy thing to do, you guys, but I put hours and hours and hours into the investigation, like 2.5 years now worth of hours. Um, this I'm gonna throw the link in here in just a second. Here is the link that I'm going to be speaking from today over there in the side. And if you're looking from your cell phone, when you open that, it's my Google Docs. Turn it sideways so that you can see the slideshow that I'll be talking about today, because I couldn't decide whether I should just do the slideshow with the words so you could see the evidence, or, come and talk to you. So here I am. But anyway, I always feel like if I present the evidence in a chronological order, then the world can't deny the deceit that's in front of their face with the investigation. So that's always here what I'm always coming to expose that, is what I mean to say. So I giggle, you guys, I laugh because I'm nervous, and also because I know that people click on my channel to find out what's up, and they hear me saying that Prince Rogers Nelson, the one the world knows as, is like an alien and God, the creator. And it's true. I it When I was in my life after life, July 20th, 2010, I didn't expect to be told those things either. And you know, I it just, what the world needs to know is that the lie, that's why the lie is so ridiculous in the world, that it seems like what I'm saying is ridiculous. It's because it's a cover up, and I feel like if I expose enough of the investigation and the cover up, then people will come to see the other side of what I'm saying. That it's all true. So, you guys, I got to figure out how to read this. I didn't finish what I was wanting to say, you guys, and that is that I show Kabbalistic stuff and I show things about the investigation that I know nobody else shows on their channels. And it's because the creator tells me these things. It's because it was a purposeful breakdown of his identity. It because he is the creator and of, I, I never want to say anything wrong, because he is of alien quality, because he can morph and change. Um, he didn't have this identity to use per se. So he used other people to create his identity, like Miron Bakure and Julie Ramadan and Mariah Brown and so many others, which I'll introduce you to. But Kirk Johnson, the people, what was going on at Paisley Park, the depth of it is it will make you laugh with nervousness on the inside when you really grasp hold of it, because you'll realize that the NWO, the KKK, the master race wannabes, Illuminati 13th, Illuminati Merovingian bloodline, the bigger their cover up is, you guys, I'm going to say it, the bigger the hard on for them. Now, Paisley Park was known to be drug free, no alcohol, Prince, you know, no conspiracies, no drug charges, no nothing during the 40-year reign, right, you guys? But that's for a reason. That's because what was actually going on underneath was more than a lot of people are ready to embrace. But again, like I said, the lie that's on this world, Ravdor, my Rabbi, it's the evil Yetzirah, and that is the opposite of good. But the Creator controls him too. But spooky electric, he was given so much room to roam in this world, to tempt you and to deceive you. And then, a narcissist, they always run away with their power and control, and they tried to create some things that shouldn't have been created. And there's a lot of cover up, and it takes a long, long time to expose it all. But again, I figure piece by piece, video by video, ramble by ramble. I have to speak freely when I'm doing these videos because it's from the heart. besides the evidence that I put together. The rest is from the heart, because I get that it's hard to understand. I get that it's hard to embrace. But the reason I get nervous when I come here and do these videos is I have to get myself to the point where I know that the Creator, He's here with me now, and He's with you too. You guys, I'm trying to get you to see that and to know that, so that you can honor Him and understand who He is, and that you don't really have to change a thing about yourself, because you are who He wants you to be. The moment that I died and I stood in heaven and I said, "Oh, I didn't know it was you," and He showed me my whole life holographically, my memories, my intellectual property, everything that makes you what you are, was explained to me, and my soul purpose was shown to me. And when I stood there and He told me it was all raveled up with His life story, it was for a purpose. My purpose was to watch Him, stalk Him, listen to Him for 39 years, brainwash my family and my friends with His love and the music, and honor Him by doing this. And that's what He showed me in the world. When I was there, He said that the only way that He could expose Himself in this world was by someone who was willing to just lay it all on the line and tell the truth and be the truth, because that person, me, therein, I'm like, the righteous one. He's like using me as this vessel to expose Him. I know that sounds crazy to some people, but just I don't care. A lot of people think, "Oh, He's using me too." That's fine. Have your relationship with the Creator. I'm here to talk about what He told me when I died and what I've experienced since then, and how it breaks down to the investigation, and the fact that the Creator Himself, He needed a vessel to use, to show Himself. And then, just like He was the first one to put music on the internet and do these things on the internet, He's going to expose Himself in that same way, because it's like I always say, the lyrics, I'm in computer, when it's over, press save, poor lonely computer blue. I've showed you guys the evidence. It's up to you if you want to look at it or not. So anyway, that's why He's able to use me. That's why He needed all the lookalikes at Paisley Park, because He has, what they did was clone, now the experiments, the MK Ultra experiments, they go back to cloning intellectual property. It's more than just cocaine on soldiers and LSD on soldiers. You guys have exposed it in lots of the other videos. That's why Andrew Kornfeld was into pharmacology. I'm going to break it all down for you in a minute, with the evidence on Kirk Johnson and the family, because they are the family. You guys, it's just gets me all inside, so bear with me. It's a cover that deep. The Creator gave the evil Yetzirah, the evil inclination in this world, the one people call devil or Satan or whatever you want to call him, NASA, Constantine, Pope Jorge, because we are all reincarnated souls, we are all able, when we go from soul to soul, or body to body, I should say, our soul changes bodies or something. I can't really explain it all the time, but when I died, He showed me that my soul was connected all the way back to His, and through all these different lifetimes. And we're not supposed to know these things while we're alive, but because He imparted His intellectual property into me, the day that I died, because something medical was going on, as I explained before, in the 2010 hip surgery. At the time that Prince allegedly had hip surgery was the day that I died. And when I got there, something medical was going on. This whole thing was explained to me. Talked to angels and the Creator and all kinds of things. You guys have to watch all the videos. I can't ramble on about it in all of them. But He told me that the evil in the world, that they had did something to the tree of life, made some kind of construct or changed time or twisted reality in such a way that he the Creator wasn't going to be able to expose Himself in a certain way. And I said, well, what if I give you a place to be so you can expose yourself. And somehow, some way, you guys, we worked something out while I was there. And that's why over the last 2.5 years, um, since the spring of 2020 COVID lockdown, I got all this Hebrew information and all this crazy stuff that happens to me all the time. I've been working on the investigation nonstop for 2.5 years. And it just is what it is. It's to expose him as who he is, and it's all a plan. When the song Breakdown came out in 2013, I've told you guys before, it told me that something was going to happen. It was him talking to me my whole life, and now I have to come and expose it because I get to. He's my best friend. He's my only friend. And when it gets right down to it, he's your only friend too, because he created your soul. He gave you his spark, your DNA. You're alive because he loves you, and you are a creation of him and for him. And the reason that I'm willing to come here and say that, you guys, is told you before, I've been seeking all things godly since 1993 in every religion, in every way I sought. I didn't know this was my purpose either until you told me, but now that you're here, you can enjoy it with me, because we're going to teach truth and light over here. And I'm not trying to say this is the way it is. I'm trying to tell you what I was told so that you can see what feels better to you, my explanation or society's explanation. Society with a CIA. You know what I'm saying? It's all a big cover up. And the purpose of it was this, you guys, as I said, and please listen closely if you've stopped. I do ramble sometimes, but like I said, it's free flow. The evil Yetzirah, the energy, the opposite of good. These energies, the Pope and these Merovingian type vampires. Let me say this. You can turn on Blade. Turn on the movie Blade if you haven't, and listen to the way that they say about humans. These are our food. They don't know we exist. Our purpose is to stay in the background. Da 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 da. Go watch the movie. It's just like that, you guys. They are in the background, but instead of biting into people's necks like they do on the movie and killing them, what they do is they traffic our children and our women and our men and rape and pillage and burn and steal and create all things ungodly in the world that I don't even want to address right now. But that's how it is. So those energies were given a certain power in the world, and then humans, people, we take on those energies because we allow them to be on us, whether you want to admit it or not. And then they run amok even more in the world and under disguise. And so when I stood there in heaven, and it was like, they do this stuff in plain sight, is my point, and they don't want us to see it. They don't think that we will believe it. We'll call him a conspiracist. Constantine starts with C-O-N too. So does the song Controversy that Prince put out. It's to bring our attention to the con. You know what I'm saying? It's the reason for the song Anti-Christian. It's all there, you guys, and I'm going to continue to hammer it home so that, like I said, you can discover what feels better, their truth or this truth. The point is that energy, because the creator doesn't have a form per se or can be anything, there was like this redo in the world. When I was there in 2010 and I died, there was a redo, some kind of timing that had to be redone because of the way that the tree of life and the gematria and stuff like that breaks down. And the evil wanted to take over not only the creator's intellectual property, which, as I mentioned before, during MK Ultra, they were working on cloning the intellectual property, the memory. You guys can research it for yourselves if you're so inclined. So it's like, your soul is your intellectual property, your memory. And so they were taken and somehow harnessing the intellectual property of the creator. And it has something to do with CERN, all the energy that they work on creating, recreating, or I think it's somehow a recreation of the creator's energy so that they can use that energy for nefarious purposes. Something like that. And that's why when CERN opened over in Switzerland, they had that horrible occultic orgy opening. You can go look that up for yourself too. It's because he is the energy. It has to do with plectrum electrum and reanimation. And it is as crazy as Frankenstein. Like, people can turn on their movies and watch Frankenstein, it was just Halloween, and think that what they're doing is crazy because it's in the movies, but it is what they're doing. It's a reanimation of holy and unholy souls, or something to that effect. It's really trippy, you guys. And somehow that's really kind of all I can say about that. And the creator told me that there was a plan to, like, I don't know, electrocute him or harness his energy in some way that he would be broken down to an extent where he wouldn't have a lot to give, and that he was going to need a pure soul, or some souls. The more that we can worship him and honor him and love him and bring him into the light, the more that he can be understood, you guys. So I know it sounds trippy, but bear with me. So that's how deep it goes, you guys. MK Ultra isn't about a monarch butterfly flying around, but it runs really deep. And I think, one second. I think also, you guys, it's when I was there, you know how I said that we're not supposed to know our soul purpose, because as we reincarnate from soul to soul, like, I think, for instance, let me use myself as an example. I believe that the creator told me that I was, like, in the Holocaust, and my family died, and I've seen family members murdered, and there's been, just throughout my lineage, there's been all kinds of devastating things that are, making me shake. So give me a minute. But we're not allowed to remember those things from journey to journey, because it would be too much and too overwhelming. I don't know if you could see me shaking, so just give me a minute. But not only that, but also because your soul, hopefully, like mine, I was told, it had done really, really good things. And if you know all the good things that your soul may have achieved in a last lifetime, then you wouldn't work hard to correct yourself in this lifetime. So the creator has to allow us to be tempted and allow us to be lied to. And you think if they tell enough lies, they will see the truth. I hope they bury old ideas the same time to bury you. Yeah, New Power Generation Graffiti Bridge. So check that out. And that's what it's about, you guys. The music led me to read my Bible. The Bible matched with the music, and it all went together in my head. And when I died, he told me why. And he told me that he could only expose himself this way because of all the tricks that had been pulled on the world. And then I meditated a lot and passed a lot of tests, and it's a lot, you guys, to understand and to know that you're responsible for letting the world know who their very creator is. It's nothing I take lightly. And I know that people don't believe me because in the United States, especially, it's been hammered home that Jesus is Lord. However, that's Christianity. And even when I was baptized as a Christian, you guys, I told you, I went back and I looked and I looked and I looked back and I was like, wait, the Hebrew people and the language and the this and the that and I traced it. I've told you about these things. But the trick is this: the creator told the evil, which is Constantine, repurposed as Pope Jorge. He wanted to be the creator. And so in this 2010 life after death experience, when I was there was this discussion about how they had utilized already for all these years his intellectual property. But during this redo, that they were going to somehow let some others utilize his physical form or something to that effect. And because ultimately what they had planned on doing was, and when I say they, I mean the others, like I said, the ones that run Area 54, whatever it is, the others, Warner Brothers, the Men in Black, Men in Black, which is numerically 313. So nothing new there. The M is a 3. and then the B is a 1-3. So the way I see it is 313 or 33rd degree gematria. Here comes the woman in black. Anyway, so it is like that, you guys, and they know it. And the very first thing that I'm going to show you, or if you have opened up that link already over here to the side, which I need to do now, so give me a moment. Whoops, a daisy. All right. So the very first thing that you guys will see on that note, well, actually, I talk about how the narrative was in the media, but scroll down, if you will, to the Freedom of Information request. Now, listen, because the investigation, you guys, it didn't lead to any criminal charges after this whole big no stone unturned investigation, didn't lead to any criminal charges as in regard to where the fentanyl and the drugs that were found around Paisley Park came from. That information is supposed to be public information, okay? What I'm showing you is the Freedom of Information Act request that was done on 7/25/18. And when you read the entire thing, 97 pages of that were either withheld or blacked out. And the legal exemption justification is what you can see is by executive order, to be kept secret by executive order. So see in the top line, it says specifically authorized under criteria established by an executive order to be kept secret in the interest of national defense or foreign policy, and are in fact properly classified pursuant to such executive order. Secret, you guys, or confidential, original classification may be delegated only by the president, vice president, agency head, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read it all. You can read. So what that means is when the information was made public, that when this person went to go get it, they withheld or blacked out the 97 pages. And the reason that they gave for that was that it would be a threat to executive order or foreign policy. So there you can see that what I'm saying isn't really that strange. It's just not something people are accustomed to hearing, because in this world, we usually hear all lies, 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 because all politicians and voting and all of that is their puppets. It's all Satan's dogs, every bit of it. And they have the world believing that it actually matters. So anyway, here's Kirk. I'm going to go as if I have to read the slide to keep myself on track. So hopefully you guys are following along. Kirk Johnson, the passport there, media tag that he's holding up, you can see how he's showing himself, identifying himself as such in disguise. Okay. So this video is going to be kind of long. You can skim it out, obviously, but I put together, listen, if you've ever read the investigation, you know what utter chaos it is to try to figure out what's going on. So when you see what I have done with this information being in order, player by player, I think that those of you that have tried to, investigate the investigation should be pretty impressed. You're welcome. It's my sole purpose. It's not like a braggy thing. It's just what I do and why I spend hours doing my job. So I have to make this a little bit bigger. I can't see so well. All right, you guys. So anyway, if you don't know, because I had a friend of mine tell me, listen, you got to tell me about this Prince Rogers Nelson person. And though I come to this channel and I assume that a lot of people that come to it know who he is and whatever, but a lot of people just might not know. So I'm going to try to be thorough. Kirk was introduced to us. He said that he met Prince in '84 as all the way back into Purple Rain dancer, and then he worked as a band member, et cetera, et cetera. And then from 2009 to present, he was hired as Prince building property manager, yada, yada. Throughout the investigation, you guys, there are many Kirk, Marone, Prince, Dr. Schulenberg, Andrew. They all have dual identities. So Kirk Anthony Johnson is one of them, okay? Now, what I have here on this slide is the Valium. They say it was prescribed in Prince Rogers Nelson's name, okay? During our investigation, the prescription monitoring program warrant was issued to obtain, yada, yada, dispensed to Prince Rogers Nelson and Kirk Anthony Johnson. According to the warrant findings, Prince Nelson had only one controlled substance prescribed to him in the last year, and that was that Schulenberg prescribed Valium on the 20th. However, the media doesn't tell you about the Valium, do they? No, they don't. Anyway, the next slide, you guys, the search warrant finding for Kirk Johnson, not Kirk Anthony Johnson, but Kirk Johnson, showed only 2 prescriptions within the last year. And that was the Percocet that he got from Dr. Schulenberg and the Tylenol 3 with codeine that he got from Dr. Boo. Now, remember that the media told us that Kirk Johnson got the Percocet in his name because Prince didn't want any narcotics in his name. Okay, so why are they able to turn around and tell us that the Valium was in Prince Rogers Nelson's name? I'm just saying, because what they do is they use a sleight of words in that first slide. And what they say is Prince Rogers Nelson and Kirk Anthony Johnson, according to the warrant findings, Prince Nelson had only one controlled substance prescribed to him within the last year. It showed he prescribed Valium. What my point is, because Kirk was one of the identities of Prince, the way that they say Prince Nelson instead of Prince Rogers Nelson, that's how they use sleight of words during this investigation. You guys really want to pay attention to that. So the fact that, again, the whole media circus was that Kirk got the medication in his name for Prince, and then they turn around and place the Valium in his name on the 20th. It just doesn't make any sense. That's just where they forgot to cover. You know what I'm saying? So now also, it's not only Kirk that has the dual identity, you guys, it's Schulenberg. And if you checked out his video, you might already know, but this is what's really important about Michael Schulenberg. The investigation file lists him as Michael T. Schulenberg, Mike, and Michael Schulenberg, or Dr. Schulenberg, whatever. But the main point is he talks about his address being 15450 Highway 7. Okay, but when you look up Dr. Michael T. Schulenberg right down below, the address, it came back as 675 Water Street, Excelsior, Minnesota. So they're using dual identities. And if you look at the Carver County release right next to it, they released the charges against the Michael T. Schulenberg, but look at Kirk's prescription down below, allegedly from the 20th. I call it Kirk's because it was. This is the one that was allegedly in Prince's name, but it's from Michael Schulenberg. Now, I don't know about you guys, but my doctor always prescribed in the same name. My name and her name were always the same. It's not something that you can flex with your DEA number. So that's shady. Okay, so those are the dual identities. So if you guys watched my other brief videos, that Kirk, he had posted this video, this slide, getting funky with the new crew. And then the slide beneath, this guy that runs Schuler Events UK, I think they try to say his name is John. But Schuler Events, he says, where you belong. And then Kirky Drum says, thanks, doctor. So I thought that it was really interesting that Schuler starts with Schuler Events and the name sounds so much the same. And that the fact that Kirk called him doctor. I'm not going to get too deep into that because I made a video of its own, but that Schuler Events promotes movies and media and video, as well as Crystal Zahetner saying that she makes video. And I think Steven Javinsky, the one that was accused of dealing drugs, I think they all make movies. Now, you guys, I'm going to take you right to April 7th. And this is what Dr. Schulenberg had to say, that Kirk had been a patient of his for 16 years. Last fall, Kirk contacted him to see if he'd be interested in doing a physical. And then he said he went at 5:45 in the morning. Okay. And these texts that are shown, you guys, I'm going to skim. I'm not going to read it all. These texts that are shown between Kirk and Dr. Schulenberg, notice this, you guys, that they only show some of them. Like the very first one, it has 5:45 at the top. But the other text where it says 11:34 at the top, we never get to see the time. Because the one where he's saying he'd rather if a doctor could come to him, do you have any other suggestions and that kind of stuff? Those texts, you can't really see when they were. The only reason it says Kirk 11:34 at the top, because that's allegedly when he was being interviewed and having these screenshots taken. So I tried to put it in the order that the media promoted it. So when you read them, dear doctor, trying to get a hold, I put in notes, you guys, where I show that he was trying to get him to remind him of his last name. So if Michael Schulenberg had been if Michael Schulenberg had been Kirk's doctor for 16 years, why would Kirk be saying, doctor, give me your first name, always say last name? It has slipped my brain. That is not something you're going to say to your doctor of 16 years. So when you're reading through those texts, because like I said, you can read through this on your own. It all goes together. It explains the whole story from the 7th to the 21st. So they tell us that Dr. Schulenberg showed up at 6:45 in the morning. met Prince at Paisley Park, did it, or excuse me, he says he met Prince, took a history, and did a physical exam at uh, his house or studio. So right there, we know that there are, with the dual investigations, one at the Paisley Park studios and one at the residence, and I'll show you that too, because Dr. Schulenberg himself said it. So notice where it says scenario 1, you guys. Dr. Schulenberg said that since he, not Prince, he wanted IV fluids, that's not something I could do there. So we arranged to meet up at my office. Then he tells us of the Highway 7 address, tells us how they went in through the back of the building. And as you can see, there's the 2 entrances of the back of the building. Now, in the second scenario, because when you read the investigation files, there's the detective's information and then there's the testimony from the witnesses, which I sliced and diced from all of them and put the whole thing together. So this second scenario has Schulenberg saying, Schulenberg told me that he has met with Prince twice at North Memorial. Schulenberg reported the first time, blah, blah, blah. The point is, last sentence says he met Prince at Paisley Park and then transported him to the clinic. Where right above, he just said they made arrangements to meet up. Second scenario, Dr. Schulenberg said he transported Prince himself. Okay, so which is it? Now, below that, you guys, is the text that, again, it doesn't have, well, this one does, I can see. If Kirk and Schulenberg were texting back and forth on April 7th, and Schulenberg had arrived at Paisley Park at 6:45, and then you see this text, it says 7:49. Kirk, who was texting in the gray before, said he was on the way and that he needs to get back in. It's super shady, you guys. Keep reading. That wouldn't have been taking place even if Schulenberg would have had to transport him somewhere else, and then maybe Kirk was saying he needs to come back and get back in. So stay with me. I'll stay with myself. Now, listen, you guys, at North Memorial, the other thing is when you go and look it up, there's the urgency center and there are clinics and a surgery center. So when Dr. Schulenberg is referring to, because when you look up the 15450 address, you're going to see North Memorial. But then when you look a little bit closer, you're going to see that there's clinics and a surgery center and that they are across the street from each other. So when Dr. Schulenberg says that they went in through the back of the building when the patient clinic wasn't open, to the best of my research, I discovered that clinic wasn't open at all for patient care. It wasn't just not open during business hours. It wasn't open for patient care. And so that's why he said he could go over about 7 and get the stuff ready, because I don't think they were supposed to be in there at all. So, and the other thing is, on April 7th, if the story they told were true, Schulenberg would be texting Kirk back saying, I hope things went reasonably well for your boss. Have a safe trip. Because earlier, if you noticed, Kirk had said that we were supposed to leave for a concert today. Now, we were told in the public that those concerts were canceled on the 7th. However, Kirk was still telling Dr. Schulenberg that they had a concert to do. And then he said there was no complications. He just doesn't look really well. As you have known him longer, you can probably tell. Now, to me, sounds almost like a mortician statement. You know, he just doesn't look really well. As you have known him longer, blah, blah, blah. It's just, again, an odd thing to say. So by that text being at 10:55 a.m. and Dr. Schulenberg texting Kirk to say, I hope things went reasonably well for your boss, it was a lot more going on than what the media tells. It's really all I'm just trying to show you guys for now. Now, then they ask him, did you prescribe any new medications on the 7th? And he says, I did not prescribe any medications on the 7th. Oh, I take that back. He says, I take that back. I did prescribe the same medication on the 7th as was prescribed. He didn't say this part, but he did say, I take that back. Listen, when Kirk as Prince, because what it was is Kirk and Marone both were playing lookalikes. Like, there's a ton of lookalikes in this. Kirk went to the doctor, and during that doctor visit on the 7th, he was prescribed Zofran and vitamin D. Okay. Those 2 medications, those were also the exact same 2 medications that were prescribed on this Carver County incident report, which I've attached for you guys. On 10/23 of 13, there is a log that shows that an ambulance from Chaska transported a patient during that ER visit, and it's all documented. You have to read it for yourself. Can't make the video that long. The doctor prescribed it says declined the Zofran as he would prefer to be as natural as possible. Leader of normal saline given and will give blah, 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 blah. Instructed patient will need to keep some water down, yada, yada, yada. And he was discharged at 11:02 on 10/23/13. Now, the Carver County statement shows that an ambulance took him to that place. However, right below that, we have Kirk testifying that and being dehydrated and needing fluids, Kirk said he took Prince to the 212 Ridgeview Emergency Center a few years ago when Prince was complaining that he was really dehydrated and needed fluids. So what Kirk is doing is actually referring to himself in, like, is it first person or third person? I don't know. Whatever. So he's referring to himself as Prince, saying that he took himself to the doctor and he was prescribed Zofran and the vitamin D, which is exactly what Dr. Schulenberg prescribed on the 7th. Okay. So now I told you guys when I was talking earlier about, I put in this, please follow along the slideshow. This goes much better if you do. I said, who is Prince? Now you'll see a picture of Marone Bacure next to a picture of Prince. And then, of course, the infamous new passport photo, which CNN, which is owned by Warner Brothers, which Van Jones was a commentator for CNN and for the White House. And so that's why CNN is all things the cheesiest you can get. I mean, it's all their promotion. It's all propaganda, but they're one of the worst. So anyway, they promoted that on CNN so that they could tell the whole world, look, this is Prince, when it wasn't. Actually, it was one of the model lookalikes. I happen to believe the passport photo was not Marone, but Natalia Phillips. So here, the next slide is, of course, Tyka and alleged brother Prince looking quite a bit like each other. You'd be amazed what plastic surgery and rubber masks and makeup and stuff like that do. This next one is Julia Ramadan. That one is so obvious when you look at her Instagram or any of her social media. During 2013-14, she was promoting herself during the hit and run tours as Prince. She has so many photos on her Instagram saying, hi, I'm Prince, talking about the tour, no sleep, this, that. The next one on here is Mariah Brown. She was one of the assistants too. That's why the investigation has so many assistants, because they're all like running these errands and doing things, because we all know that a person can't be in that many places at once, even if they wanted to. The next slide is, of course, what this Prince appeared as on the Arsenio Hall show, and Kirk's daughter, Michaela. Now, if you look at Kirk Drum's Instagram, you'll see that his daughter, Michaela, goes by Kayla, which MK is for MK Ultra. But Michaela has a little tag on her cheerleader tryout uniform that says 314, which is the 314 Pi. So they put the stuff right out in plain sight. The next slide, you guys, is Natalia Phillips. And when you go through Kirk's phone records and the investigation, they found out that 70% of the calls from Paisley Park to this phone number were Natalia Phillips, and she was a model. And on her modeling portfolio, she takes credit for piano and a microphone print work, and Prince's 3121 video, and another one that I can't read on my slide. So this model actually did work as Prince and for Prince before, and like I said, took credit for print work on the piano and microphone tour. As you can see, there's a picture of her looking like him dressed up. There's that print work. And you can see how much the passport picture looks like her as well. You guys can say what the frump that don't know Prince Rogers Nelson from the 39 years that I stalked him, but even with the effeminate touch that he had and wasn't afraid to display, due to him being perfection, he was not a woman, not a man. It's perfection. So passing oneself off as a woman or a man, no problem. And but these pictures, anyway, they're lookalikes. I'm not really sure what was going on with all of them in the intellectual property. Some of them were different than others. This last slide right here, you guys, this one, here's my right hand because I'm facing the wrong way. You watch the concerts, you watch the live music in the past when it was on and available. He'd always do the thing with his hand, let me hear, whatever. This lookalike Prince is making the 318 or 3666 sign with it's the okay. It's actually 1 1 3. This is 1 and this is 3. and this is 3 6s, so it's 1318. It's what I teach about on the it's why South Park does MK, because it's an M, it's an OK, it's MK, it's MK Ultra. It just is 318. It's Satan stuff. It's why uh, the year that Pope Jorge was born, 1936, it equals 1318. Um, what did I write? Yeah, that wasn't for this video. And World War One, two, and three, the year of them, World War Two. I won't get into it right now. I'll get off track. Another video for that. Go watch the last video that I did, you guys, that explains the writing. Anyway, you guys, not only do we not have any identity whatsoever in the investigation, the whole investigation is based on the fact that this suitcase, this blue interior suitcase, with $191, which is a 19 for pie, and the 19 that we find ourselves in now, because it was all clues, hair dye. Anyway, my point is, those prescriptions that are in there, those are Kirk's. Those are the ones that he got on the 7th. They are Kirk Johnson's prescriptions. The suitcase was called Prince's because the suitcase was allegedly tagged with the label that said Peter Bravestrong. And because Prince Rogers Nelson did all this music and all these different names, they called the suitcase his because they said he was using the name Peter Bravestrong. So what I put in there, that slide, you guys, and it says, this is what they had to say. I assisted searching the bedroom believed to be the room used by Prince. In the bedroom I searched, yada, yada, yada. We looked inside the medication bottles. Excuse me. Inside the suitcase, I found 2 medication bottles in the case with the name Kirk Johnson. Kirk Johnson was one of the people at Paisley when we arrived, and one of the people who discovered Prince in the elevator. When we looked inside the medication bottles, it was discovered there was 4 different types of medication in 2 separate bottles. It appears the medication listed on the outside was not what was in the bottle. So again, not only is the suitcase marked Peter Bravestrong, the medication is Kirk's. Now, this next slide goes on to describe that the second bottle that was found in the suitcase in Kirk Johnson's name was, it was the one that was labeled Zofran. Inside of it was 1 yellow pill that was found to be the thing to present what it was, Zofran, to prevent nausea, vomiting. And in the other, there were also 8 pills, you guys, that came out to be the Percocet. So in that suitcase were the Percocet that he allegedly got on the 14th in the pill bottles that he got from Dr. Schulenberg on the 7th. Kirk, not Prince Rogers Nelson. So again, Peter Bravestrong, no identity. Now, when Judith Hill is being interviewed, you guys, this is what she says about Peter Bravestrong. Okay, the detective says, do you have anything that you think might be of evidentiary value for us, something that would help us investigate, blah, blah, blah. And Judith says, I mean, when we'd travel, he'd go by Mr. Bravestrong, like that was his name. I don't know. I don't know if that's anything. Peter Bravestrong, the detective says, and she says, yeah, Mr. Bravestrong, Peter Bravestrong. So she said, when we travel, he goes by. They never say, like, you're talking about Prince Rogers Nelson, 40-year reign and all things music. I don't care who you are. And this investigation, you don't just assume that somebody is somebody and not use their given name or their right birth dates or anything else like I've disclosed. But as far as, like I said, there might be people seeking information that don't know anything about the investigation. So I'm trying to be super thorough. And this will be a long video, but you guys can fast forward or go play somewhere that doesn't matter. I love you and I want you to learn the truth. Peter Bravestrong's identity, you guys, was set up on 11/1/14. When you're investigating the file, it says that this was a screenshot from Prince's computer, not Prince Rogers Nelson. And it was set up on 11/1/14. The thing is, they don't tell us who was called. And when you do set up a Skype account, you have to show ID. So they don't show us any of that either. They just show us that this Skype account was set up. And I always said, because you know how the lyrics, Peanut Butter Logic served on a bed of lies, Dreamer, I think, one of those, it's off that album. Peter Bravestrong is PB, Peter Bravestrong, and Peanut Butter Logic served. So that's why that's on there. Now, that was April 7th, you guys, and on to April 8th. Media doesn't say anything about it, but Schulenberg tells us that on the 8th, Marone called him asking if Prince could talk to her. Then they hung up, and then another minute later, somebody named Prince called him back, and they talked for about 15 minutes. And when he did talk to this person named Prince, what's interesting, you guys, is he said, and on Friday, he informed me that he had canceled his shows. So if they were talking Friday the 8th, and Schulenberg says this, and so when I talked to Prince, on Friday, he had informed me that he had canceled his shows that he was supposed to go to that night. That was Friday the 8th, not the 7th. So they were still messing around doing things on the 8th, and that's why Marone had called him. That's what he said, probably to get more drugs, allegedly. So anyway, that explains that, where Marone called, yada, yada. Now, aside from the 7th, 14th, and 21st, the media doesn't tell you anything. So there's the 7th and the 8th, and then we're moving forward to the 14th, where the media tells us that Kirk called Dr. Schulenberg, seeing if he could get medication for Prince's hip pain, but Prince didn't want opiates in his name, so Kirk got it in his own name. That was the media story. However, scenario 1, you guys, you can see that they tell us that Kirk does contact because Prince's hip was bothering him. However, Dr. Schulenberg took it upon himself to write this in his file. Patient called and is leaving town for Atlanta Patient called and is leaving town for Atlanta for concern shortly and hurt his back lifting equipment. Was wondering if he could get something. Reviewed symptoms of low back axial pain without alarm symptoms. One-time script for Percocet that he could pick up. FYI, I have known patient for 15 plus years, and this is a very rare request. Patient is aware he will need to come and pick up the script. So this is the thing, if you're not paying attention. They allege that Kirk called for hip pain, but then Dr. Schulenberg just gave it to him, because they were trying to hide Prince's identity. Okay, and even if you believe that story, why you got to lie about your files and write one-time alarm, axial pain, and patient must pick up, and I've known him for 16 years, yada, yada. No, the depth of the cover-up is pretty huge because there's different identities. There's Kirk Anthony Johnson and Kirk Johnson Phaedrus. So yeah, there's that. Now, that's actually what they did on the 14th. Now, not only that, you guys, is they allege that Kirk Johnson was supposed to pick up the prescription from Dr. Schulenberg, and later on, here it is right here. I forgot that I talked about it. This is one page of Kirk's phone records, even though the whole telecommunications things can be seen there with the link. Kirk didn't contact Dr. Schulenberg, you guys. You can go through his whole phone file for the 14th. Kirk never contacted Schulenberg. Schulenberg actually contacts Prince. Now, I've told you that before, but there's the phone records. And before he called Dr. Schulenberg, he actually called Dr. Boo, the dentist, Dr. Boo, and had a 12-minute conversation with her, you guys. And then Dr. Schulenberg called in. So probably in the background, she called him and he called her. You know how friends and family do in this investigation anyway. Now, also, you can see that the incoming call is at 1303, which is 103. They say that Dr. Schulenberg wrote the prescription at 1:30, and if Kirk was to pick up the prescription in person, which he alleged in his file, and pick up the prescription that he picks up from Dr. Boo in White Bear up by Bloomington and get on a plane at 2:30, it would never happen. So that's there in the phone records. Check out the link, you guys. It's really, really detailed. The thing that really flubs me up during all this investigation history is that this one screenshot right here, it says Kirk Johnson's phone records on 4/14 and 4/15, the day of the Atlanta show. I went through Kirk Johnson's cell phone records, and they were provided in UTC time, which is Universal Time, which is 5 hours ahead of Central Time and 4 hours ahead of Eastern Time. According to the flight times on 4/14, yada, yada, they talk about how the plane left at 2:32 and arrived in Atlanta at 5:30. But this detective says during all those phone records, because they were presented in UTC time, that he needed to subtract 5 hours from the time Kirk Johnson was believed to be in Central Time and 4 hours from the time they were believed to be in Atlanta, Georgia. What's really important about that, you guys, is because that was one of the dual flights that he was on that probably went to Canada and had something to do with Renville, Wellington, and or picking up Andrew Kornfeld in California. I'm not sure. But when the jet went down in Moline, that's why they had to get another one, because the pilots had to be replaced because they couldn't fly for more than 12 hours or 5,950 miles on a Dassault Falcon, I'm pretty sure. So, but the UTC time, it shows that he wasn't where he said he was, picking up the prescriptions and making the phone calls. So we're just going to continue with the false scenario that the media gave and expose it as we go along. The detective was writing, you guys, is really important about Bloomington, Minnesota. Detective says he received an email, and the first video was from Walgreens located at 7845 Portland Avenue in the city of Bloomington. This was 4/14, the date that the Percocet was issued to Kirk Johnson. And then they go on to talk about the other pickups, but we're on the 14th. So 7845 is in Bloomington, Minnesota, which Bloomington is up by White Bear, by Dr. Boo's office. So again, remember the timing of what they said. Dr. Schulenberg wrote his prescription at 1:30. Kirk was supposed to pick it up in person. And then he couldn't meet with Dr. Wu until after 2 because she said herself she didn't get to work until that time. And White Bear, I believe, is at least an hour and a half from there. Bloomington. We're back to Bloomington. That's what's important. Notice that when Kirk is in there in the pharmacy, you guys, he's wearing a black outfit that is an Under Armour outfit. Okay. And I want you to keep that in the back of your mind because the death photo, the death scene pictures, one of the Prince lookalikes is wearing, you got it, an Under Armour outfit. You can see it right on his collar. Lookalike. Look at this slide of Kirk Johnson, the one that's right after the pharmacy photo. You can see that he has a wig sitting down around his neck in the Under Armour photo with his bald, skinny head. Right around his neck, you can see the furry wig, probably lace front and all. Now, the next photo, still him at the pharmacy. Notice the flat back bag, flat black bag. It looks to be pink on the inside, just for one. And then also the reason I'm pointing out the bag is because later on there is just some discussion as to who is carrying what bag and whose is whose. But, everything matters. Now, you guys, the media presents that grainy picture of Prince pacing around outside Walgreens. They don't tell you that CVS Pharmacy is involved, and that's where Kirk got his prescriptions, but they have to sneeze. They also don't tell you that Target was being used because the next number 112 there, it says that item 14, Target brand vitamin C bottle located in the suitcase with the ID Peter Bravestrong, yada, yada. That's the pill bottles that had the pills that were marked Watson 853 that were allegedly Vicodin, you guys. Those pills were in the suitcase marked Peter Bravestrong. They were not, this addict Prince Rogers Nelson's, the way they present it in the media. So read that Target and CVS information. It talks about how even the vitamin bottles, even the vitamin C bottles had 54 white oblong pills marked Watson 853, that the bottle contained a mixture of synthetic lidocaine and hydrocodone pills. This wasn't a simple, Prince got Vicodin or Percocet. See, that's the thing also. The media hypes up that Prince was taking illicit hydrocodone and Kirk got Percocet on the 14th. So you can see how the whole thing doesn't make sense. And then as they're going around Paisley Park, they find all this white hydrocodone, right? And all these various pill bottles. So, and then the other ones were in a CVS bottle in the black suitcase with the Peter Bravestrong ID. You guys, you know how I mentioned earlier the name Peter, or I mentioned the Pope. It's why the song, like I mentioned before, Count the Days, and the song The Pope. Constantine Francis, Jorge Mario Bergoglio. That's the Pope's name. He goes by Pope Francis, but his name is Jorge. It's Jorge. Georgie, orgy for orgy, Georgie Porgy put in pie. All these things are so disgusting. They have these roots back that way. Mario is the whole Mario thing, and Bergoglio, that's his real name. And if you take the M-A from Mario and the Gog from Bergoglio, then you have Magog. So what I was going to say is the Pope, it's why he has Peter's Basilica, where he does the Easter ceremony and stuff like that, because in the New Testament, if you were a Christian believer, they're like, Peter, oh, Jesus, they do all these things in the New Testament, but that's because it was rewritten to make your confidence in these people that they say took the place of the one and only Adonai Elohim Emet, the one and only true creator. They have you connecting to their New Testament instead of the root of your very soul. And that's the lie, and that's why it involves him, and that's why they use the name Peter Bravestrong, because that's who he is undercover. And when he traveled and such, he wanted to keep himself Peter, brave and strong. Real simple. Real simple stuff. It's a lot simpler than it seems. It's so simple that when I was in my life after life, I felt stupid for having, well, actually I did recognize a lot of it. I was like, I knew it. I knew it. But it's a blow to the ego, you guys. It's a blow to think that the whole world around us is as elusive and delusional as I don't know, people don't want to recognize it. That's on them. Um, anyway, back to the investigation. On April 14th, you guys, Judith Hill, let's go back to the day. If you know anything about Prince Rogers Nelson, and if you listen to Chris Gaither talk on his testimony or anything like that, you know that the one the world knew as Prince didn't really drive around that much. Chris Gaither says that Kirk would have never been out driving Prince around like that. So the fact that Judith Hill, right here on April 14th, is saying that Prince picked her up, that shady is lying like a rug. When did you first, because it wasn't the Prince, it was the lookalike Kirk probably. So, okay, when did you first see Prince, Mr. Nelson? See how they correct themselves like that? We got a late start in the day, so he picked me up at the noon hotel at noon or one-ish, maybe even two, the detective says. He says two because that's what time Dr. Boo's office opened, I'm sure. She said late afternoon, okay. And he said, is this the day before? And she said, no, this is the day of the show. So on the day of the show, Kirk's getting all this medication over here in the background, but Judith Hill has us believing that Prince picked her up. Okay. And then the detective says, okay, when you flew out, who all was on the plane? And she says, just Prince, Kirk, and me. Just Prince, me, and Kirk. And you guys, this scenario, if you're following along with the slideshow, I'm telling you, man, because that's a lot of work going through all of those files. The creator helps me do it. It's amazing. And splicing it together like this so it gives a more complete whole picture. If I'd stop rambling, you could get. Can't help it. So she said it was just her, Kirk, and Prince on the plane. Now, this is the deal. All the media says that they arrived in Atlanta at 5:30. And Judith says, let's see. The first show was at 7:30, I believe, 7 or 7:30, and we were running late. We pretty much were getting there around that time. What were you doing for 2 hours when the bodyguards and Renville Wellington and those people that said that they are responsible for advancing the vehicles on scene, what are you doing for 2 hours? So she said we had a really quick sound check, and then we had to get police escorted to the venue anyways because we were running behind. Now, Prince Rogers Nelson, I went to 5 or 6 concerts. I can never remember. And one thing that he was notorious for was his everlasting sound checks. So for her to say they did a really quick sound check, that's because they were piping in ADR tracks, Anyway, automatic something where they replaced the music in the background. So they got police escorted. This is not talked about in the investigation anywhere. And she talked, it was the Pangaea's Theater, something like that. Now, she said, oh, there's another thing. Before the first show or after the first show, he was more depressed, talking about things like, this is what Judith says, and this is super important if you're following the investigation. A guy from Electric Fetus stopped by. That's, the Electric Fetus that they're always posting about right there in Minneapolis. The small independent record shop, and he had one of the younger guys come out, sit there and talk about business and things. So then the detective says, and they talk about the 2 shows, blah, 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 and that Janelle Monáe and CeeLo had popped in. And then the detective asks what time the second show started, and this is very important too. She says the second show started at 10:30, and it was an hour and a half long. So by that time, she said that Prince was joking that he was really going to fall asleep up there. So after he had seen the people from Electric Fetus, then he did the second show and was acting like he was going to fall asleep. And she thought it was strange. That's what these words say, and I'm skimming. And then Judith says, yeah, I mean, he was really, I've never seen him. He was just kind of, oh man, I enjoy sleeping more these days. It means like I've done all I'm supposed to do here on earth. And he was kind of depressed. And then she said, and I mean, this was when the incident hadn't happened on the plane yet. I just thought it was weird why you would never, you're so in the moment on stage, why you would ever want to fall asleep. I found that to be very out of character for him to say something like that. And the reason that is because everybody else is always saying that Prince is most alive when he's on stage. So, If this person took drugs or was experimenting with things, they could have been falling asleep. And the people from Electric Fetus are never mentioned, and that I will get to later. Now, Guy asks, okay, did you ride the same SUV back to the airport? And she said, yeah. On the way back, it was just just Prince and I. Okay, no Kirk? No. Okay, how did Kirk get from the airport to the venue? Oh, wait, was he sitting up front? I don't think he was. I think, well, there's always two. It's always Prince and I. So she never even answers. The next thing that you read down is the next detective saying that the out of town security agents that I mentioned earlier, the elusive Renville Wellington, he told the detective in Atlanta that there were only two bodyguards, he and Kirk Johnson, and they were in two different vehicles. Renville told me that on that date, Kirk Johnson was with Prince in one vehicle and Renville was in the second vehicle. So you can see how contradictory those stories are between her and Judith and the other. Because when you splice together, like when you're doing the files, there's one that the DEA does with witnesses. There's alleged first responder Chief Johnson. You have to splice them and put them all together. So when you read it and get into it like I have, you realize none of this stuff goes together. But I put it together so you guys could see what was actually going on and how false it really is. So hopefully you're picking up what I'm putting down. And you guys, then the detective is asking her about going back to the airport. And this is super important too, because she says, we don't go through security. Oh, you just go straight to the plane, which is the thing with private jets and stuff like that. I'm sure it's not unusual. And she said, yeah, the SUVs just take us straight up and drive us straight to the airport. Now, I skip over to the next slide, and that is because Josh and Hannah, I think, no, this was Judith Hill still. She said that after they got on the plane, sorry, I couldn't see. Excuse me. She said that after they got on the plane, I didn't really think much of it. He just sat there and talked to her a little bit, asked her if she needed a cough drop, and then he went to digging around in this black bag in the back of the plane. That's what she explains. You can read it word for word if you want. She says that Prince left where he was sitting, went in the back of the plane, was digging for a cough drop, came back, asked her if she wanted one. She said no. And then she says, and then he says, but we'll see. I need to get some sleep. And then she says, the next thing you know, he just looks down and it looked like we were both going to kind of prepare to sleep or whatever. And I was just, and his eyes were fixed and he just kind of looked down and he just kind of like did one of these and like this again. And then he went out like that. So this person that was Prince, like she was explaining the way that he had died or passed out after rummaging in the black bag for a cough drop. And then they asked about a description of the bag, which you can read. What I did is I'm going to skim these two. These are descriptions of the bag, and it will come into play later because it has to do with the Peter Gravestrong case and whose luggage is whose. So they're talking about how Kirk was carrying Prince's stuff. But I'm going to skim that. Let's see. And then the detective says what happens then. And she says, and after, so he nods off. And then I hear some water spilling. I look under the table and he still has this water bottle in his hand and it's spilling. I thought it was, blah, blah, blah. So then they go through this whole scenario where she says that that Kirk got up and tried to shake Prince and they couldn't, and he wasn't breathing and he just looked dead. And she thought he was dead. You guys got to read this for yourself. I can't read every word. So she's freaking, her heart is pounding and he looks dead and yada, yada, yada. Now, the whole thing is this, you guys. She had said that the second concert started at 10:30, if you remember correctly. This next snippet in here says that it's from the news magazine. I think it says that the Falcon 900 took off about 12:51 from the Atlanta airport. But then the next pilot down is Pilot Betchhold. And I'll bring it together in a second. He said when Prince arrived at the airport, he was part of a motorcade. He said that Prince was amped up, which was in contrast to his behavior before. But this is what's important. Betchhold, the pilot, said they departed around 22:30, which is 10:30. They departed the airport at 10:30, but Judith said that the second concert didn't start till 10:30. So whatever plane Betchhold was flying had it was a whole different scenario, you guys, and that's there for you to see. And then again, with the news magazine saying the Dassault Falcon took off at 12:51, they're two different scenarios. So you got to remember that. It's really hard to explain. So if I sound like I'm looping around, that's why. So then I put in the evidence about the 10:30 plane. What's important about Judith's testimony with Prince on the plane is that she says that she uses the word finally, and she's like, and finally we descended, and finally we landed, and finally they got on board. There's a scenario where I read that there was a plane that was made to circle for 45 minutes at the Moline airport before they could get clearance to land. But then the other report has the Dassault Falcon landing, descending from 45,000 feet in 17 minutes. So they're definitely different scenarios. And you guys, you got to remember why would they do that to the public? It's a really big cover up. So anyway, Judith says that they finally landed, finally descended. And then the cop asked, okay, so the first two people that showed up were separate from the actual ambulance showing up. And she said, yeah, they were like paramedics. They were not the ambulance. That's what she said. Area 51, folks. Warner Brothers. It just is what it is. And she said, so finally, everyone picks up a leg and an arm, and they all just carry him out of the ambulance and get him onto the bed. Carry him into the ambulance, pardon me, and get him into the bed. Now, when you read that, you guys, amongst all the other things that I already said, the next guy down, Fredrickson, he's an EMT. He said that when he arrived, the plane had already landed, the stairs were out, and Fredrickson grabbed his gear and got a cot. Now, what he observed was a big black guy. He said a guy in a black suit carrying a little guy out of an airplane like you would carry a little kid or a baby. Fredrickson said the guy who was carrying the person was a big dude, African-American, wearing a dark suit. And he described seeing a pretty younger girl with lighter colored skin also exit the plane. You guys, this is extremely relevant. As you can see with the pictures, Kirk Johnson is a little guy, 5'4" tops. You can see him next to all those women when he's working for his fitness, whatever it is, the fitness thing that he works for. And also the next picture down where he is with Larry Graham and some other people, and it looks like Janelle Monáe, that he is barely above her, and she's like tiny 5'2" also. So he is a very little guy. He would never be described as a big black guy carrying another guy out of the plane like you would a baby. Wouldn't happen. Not to mention Judith said Kirk was carrying Prince's stuff. So not the same people. Now, Fredrickson also says this, you guys. He said that at first he thought the person that was being carried was an older female because they were wearing glittery clothing and shoes. There's only two things that can happen right there. When a person says they were wearing gold clothing, either there was two people wearing gold clothing, or they're using that new nowadays pronoun they for a he or a she or somebody that prefers to be called they instead of her or them or whatever, however that works. So the way that I read it, there was two people wearing gold clothing because there's imitators, and somehow they crossed wires and did the landings and didn't organize them quite right. So anyway, there's that. And I have discussed with you guys before, which I don't get into in this video, how at the Moline Hospital, the Dr. Mancha describes, refuses to call Prince anything but the patient. She won't call it Prince Rogers, not it. That person, Prince Roger Nelson Prince, she won't refer to them anything besides the patient. And then the paperwork goes on to show that they're testing the patient with the male and female grasp threshold, which I've discussed before. It leads me to be there was somebody doing a sex change in some way. So it gets really deep. So anyway, then they talk about the luggage and Kirk's bag again, you guys. Not super duper important. For now. And so then, what's important, you guys, is Judith goes on to tell this story. And this is really important. She says, oh no, at this part, this was like when we were all standing around. Before we had taken our actual seats, her words, not mine. Yep. And then they hit him with the thing. And they were like, is this in the back of the ambulance? Yeah, in the back of the ambulance. Okay. And Kirk and everybody's just standing. We're all standing in the back of the ambulance while they hit him with the electrode thing. Never, I've read all the DEA reports, every report that's available, and nobody. In fact, the media narrative is that Prince denied any tests, and that he was only given the 4 whatever's of Narcan on scene, and nobody, detectives or otherwise, ever mentioned the electrodes and the shock, except for Judith Hill. And then she talks about how they're all standing around in the back of the ambulance before they took in their seats. So, I slip up my grammar sometimes too, but dang. Token? Seriously? I'm sorry, I have to laugh. Okay, and then she says they were talking. They never say who they is. They were talking and they were like telling Prince, you got to cooperate with us. We're going to try to get you back, you know. And then his body started convulsing rapidly. And I was like, what is going on? And they're like, it's wearing off. We got to hit him again. And we hit him again. These guys, hey, can we stop the vehicle? First, she said they were standing around in the ambulance before they had taken their seats. And then she said they were standing around again. And then she says that somebody says, hey, can we stop the vehicle? We need to take a picture of his heart. And all this is going on. And I'm just like, oh my God. So finally, like, you know, they hit him again. And it's a lot of chatter. And then we get to the ambulance and we pull in to the emergency room and we pull in and then they open the doors and I get out of my seat and they pull him out and I see him and he's like looking around and I'm like, oh, thank God. Now, the reason I read that like that, you guys, is because I believe that she was interviewed almost a month later, at least a few weeks. Now, this woman gets on stage and sings with Prince as Prince, probably another one, Judith Hill. And when she's being interviewed, she said that, and I read it exactly like she said it verbatim. She says nothing, but what she was actually saying was undercover stuff about how this happened and that happened. And then finally they got him. What they did, you guys, is I think they did the two landings together and somehow switched one prince for another. And I think that somebody actually might have died in Moline. There was so many lookalikes. I'm not sure who it was, but these are just the things that I think that go along with the scenario. So you could just imagine being an EMT or a pilot, you know, carting around Prince Rogers Nelson, the one, the world, and then this whole thing goes like this. Are you serious? Like, they just never knew that anybody was going to care enough to uncover their BS like I do and sole purpose. So that's what I'm going to do. So anyway, and then she talks about how the doctors come in and they run a little test on the pills and they're trying to find out what he was taking. Now, this is what's really important too, because Judith says, and I quote, they run a little test and they say, it's like, okay, they're trying to find out if the pill that he took had the same amniophenol as what's in Percocet or something like that. However, Kirk Johnson and the other people that are there in the Moline reports, when you get more into that, they will tell you that they absolutely, Kirk, I believe it's Nurse Esperanza, is given one of the white Vicodin pills and takes it to the pharmacy, and they say point blank, all they did was look at it and say, yep, that looks like Vicodin. And the detective says, oh, so you didn't run any tests or anything on it? And they said, no, they put it in a baggie and gave it back. So the fact that Judith says they ran a little test and the other people say they didn't run a different scenarios, you guys. So Moline is a whole separate thing in itself. And like I said, when you consider that they could have replaced the identity and that Mancha wouldn't call him anything but the patient, they talk about what he took out of the Bayer bottles, et cetera, et cetera. When you go on to read Kirk's testimony about April 14th, you guys, he also says the concert ended at about 10:30. Kirk said he, Prince, and Judith Hill boarded the plane to head back to Minnesota. Kirk was asleep when Judith woke him up and said something's wrong with Prince. Now, again, remember the second concert on the 14th did not start until 10:30. So Kirk is lying, or they're talking about a whole nother scenario together, which they just thought we wouldn't discover, but I'll get there. Again, there's Betcholt's testimony saying that they left at 10:30 also, that the flight attendant went back to check during that flight and that Prince and Kirk were hugging, he said. And then later on that the pilot says that he grabbed the oxygen tank and went running to the back to try to save this Prince. Whereas Judith says right below that it was just her and Kirk in the back by themselves and that nobody else was back there with them. So all these scenarios, they're overwhelmingly false, or, you know, several different incidences of which they're trying to splice together as one mass media lie. It's like the album Chaos and Confusion. So then there's the Moline report, the fire department's report, where it says they were dispatched at 1:17 a.m., you guys, which would be with the pilot Gallus, who said that they left at whatever 12:51, and then they landed at 1:17 when the second concert didn't even get over for an hour and a half, so till 12 or whatever. So different scenarios. My slideshow gets a lot more detailed, so the ones that are really, really interested, you can read verbatim. As I said, I did put a lot of work into it, and you'll appreciate it. So this is what's really important, too. It says scenario 2, Josh and Hannah and Josh Welton on the plane. You guys, it was said, Kirk said it, and Judith said it, that it was just her, Kirk, and Prince on the plane on the 14th. However, when Hannah and Josh are being interviewed, Josh says no. I mean, as much as I know, just on the plane, Kirk had made the call. Okay. Kirk had told us to land it, Hannah said. Hannah butted in and said to land it. Okay. And so when they landed in Moline, yeah, I believe it was. So what I did is I put that in there because she said that Kirk told us to land it. Yeah, to land it because he himself wasn't responsive. She's talking about Kirk because again, Kirk was playing Prince as well. And Josh had said, yeah, to land it because he wasn't himself and he wasn't responsive. They also were on the plane. And later on, I'll mention to you how they said that they were on the second to last concert tour, which was in Toronto. So I think in the midst of meshing this BS cover up all together, they were talking about maybe two different landings or two different incidences, but they have to answer for why these all go together. And they also refer to the airport in Bloomington. So again, I give you some more EMT information about how Fredrickson said that a big dude was carrying the guy like a baby. And the other thing, I've said it before, and I don't mean to be rude, the fact that Natalia Phillips was being used as a lookalike and Julia Ramadan as well. Natalia Phillips, as well as Maron Bakir. Maron Bakir is like an Ethiopian model or something, and Julia Ramadan is a model. And what was I saying? Oh, the guy said that a pretty younger, lighter skinned girl was seen exiting the plane. And all I said before is that Judith isn't a younger, light skinned girl. She might be light skinned for an African American woman, but nobody would describe her as a pretty younger girl. So that was either Natalia Phillips or Julie, probably Natalia or Marone. They all play their parts, you guys. They all do. I know it sounds trippy, but it's true. So then what's really telling you guys is Dr. Schulenberg is being interviewed and he says this. Chris Nelson says to him, I didn't hear anything about the emergency landing. And Schulenberg says, oh yeah, he was flying back from Atlanta. And she says, okay. And he says, and had an emergency landing in Illinois and was in an ER for 3 hours to get fluids. So again, I have all the videos on Moline if you want details, but all the Moline, Dr. Mancha and all the nurses and everything, and the paperwork shows that he came about 1:26 in the morning and didn't discharge until 9:34 in the morning. But Dr. Schulenberg is saying that he had the emergency landing and had to get fluids for 3 hours. But that goes along with the fact of the multiple landings and multiple scenarios in the paperwork that I've showed you before that appeared as the kind that you would do online, because they had a password attached to them and everything like that. So the deceit gets really in depth. Now, what's really, really important, you guys, is I believe the way that I've put together the investigation is that because with the MK Ultra and the pharmacology and everything like that, they were doing all these manipulations of the intellectual property, as I discussed early on, transferences of energy, if you will, so that the other people could perform as Prince with huge stage fright. And so this other person was wanting to use these drugs. And that's why they had like the suppositories for not throwing up and stuff like that too, because when you do that many drugs, you're going to feel nauseous. And so that's to keep them from vomiting, being sick. So when they were in Moline, Kirk said that Prince went to the hospital and they gave him something to take him out of the unconsciousness. Kirk told me during the interview that the doctor, blah, 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 blah. This is what's trippy too, you guys, is the detective who's writing this says excuse me. Let me read it. Prince admitted he took 1 to 2 pills and Kirk thought they were called naloxone. Naloxone is sold under the name brand Narcan, which the paramedics used to treat Prince. I believe Kirk was confused when he told me Prince took naloxone. Now, the detective wrote that and he said he thought Kirk was confused. You don't get to say if somebody's confused or not. Like if he said he was taking naloxone, and to the best of my knowledge, naloxone is not sold, or excuse me, that is Narcan. I was thinking bupropion. So naloxone is Narcan. And so when Kirk said that's what he was taking, that's what he meant. However, I don't think that Kirk really knew what it did, because when he learned about the Narcan there, he Dr. Mancha said that he chased her down out of the room and she wrote it down on a piece of paper. And then when you read Judith Hill's whole discussion, she talks about how Prince, which I believe was Kirk, was talking about how when he was coming back from his life after death, he was feeling all this transference and he could see himself from a different energy, kind of probably like I did when I died, I would imagine. But then I think what had happened was he discovered Narcan could be used for reviving somebody out of, you know, with, overdose or whatever. So when they're experimenting with these drugs, they could use the Narcan. It was something like that. It's the only thing that makes sense. And again, when you read that Andrew Kornfeld had graduated college with the brain sciences and pharmacology and everything else, as well as the April 15th tweet, whatever it's called, that says, I am transformed. Okay. So they were practicing this transcendence, this stuff with these drugs, like I said, you guys. And then I go on to show that Andrew, one of the Andrews, you have to go watch the other video because there's two. One is a graduate from USC and in neuroscience and psychology, and his interest in brain science and psychopharmacology complement his work at Recovery Without Walls. So check that out. The other one is an Andrew that hasn't graduated yet and just took his MCAT exam. So two different identities. So I think they found out that Narcan would work. However, this is the other thing, you guys. Narcan isn't just given to addicts who are overdosing. It's used for a lot of other things. It can reverse, like I put the clips in there. It can reverse respiratory depression. It's for people in septic shock, people in cardiac arrest, because, brings you back to who you are. Now, also, bupropion, which is naloxone or Suboxone, it can cause seizures and an irregular heart rhythm and may cause serious and potentially life-threatening side effects. Listen, you guys, if you have low electrolytes, like somebody who's been using all the, what do you call them, enemas that were found around Paisley Park, because again, I believe Andrew Kornfeld had a lot to do. He reported that he had Crohn's disease, so I don't know if he would be using those as a Prince lookalike or just practicing the pharmacology. I'm not sure. But if you were doing that, or you were cleansing your body so that the drugs would be more effective, you're going to lower your electrolytes. And then that bupropion can cause seizures. So the plane could have went down because somebody was having a seizure. Any of these things could have happened. It was said that it was thought to be an overdose, but it was never proven to be an overdose. That's what I'm saying. Just because there was Narcan flung around, the word was used, doesn't mean anything. Now, you guys, after the planes went down, pardon me, you look at Kirk's, because like I said, I think somebody died there in Moline, and then you look at Kirk's phone records and you can see that he was contacting Bronco Trucking Logistics to get a refrigerated carrier cooler. And if you look at the pictures that I have available right here, you can see that prior or during the investigation, this carrier cooler was affixed to the back of Paisley Park. And then after the investigation, during the memorial, the so-called memorial that they were having about a week or so later, that truck was had tires put on it, ready to move. So I think it was a refrigerated cooler for keeping a refrigerated body. I just do. And that the whole big thing was a plan. Like the creator told me about these, but I still had to come and put the scenario together because it's just, hopefully you're still watching. I figure if those other channels can make 3-hour-long videos, if you guys really want to know the truth, you'll scroll or you'll stick around. It all needs to be told. So then on April 15th, 16th, and like I said, this all goes in order. This is really important because they have this Prince tweeting, or I don't know if they're Instagrams or tweets. I don't know. This is on the 16th, you guys. This is super important because please support your local record store today. Clears throat to attract attention. Electric fetus. Now, if you remember Judith's testimony, she said that somebody, and during more of the testimony, she says she thinks it's the owner or the owner's son. And Sari Nelson and those people talk about it too. Electric fetus, when she clears her throat to attract attention, support your local record store. To me, that reads, and people in the know will know what I mean, that they're making a call for drugs, okay? Because if she said that the Electric Fetus people came to the concert and then this Prince that was performing started to feel a certain way, the investigation doesn't mention the Electric Fetus people. And then on the 16th, when they were said to have the Paisley Park After Dark party to show the whole world that Prince was okay, they're tweeting Electric Fetus again. And you know what I mean if you know what I mean. So then they're also tweeting out the controversy song. Oh, it's controversy going on, all right. Now the thing is this too, you guys, they have this Prince lookalike wannabe, all the people. If you read the investigation, this Prince is always sending out information about how their shows went, like reviews and stuff like these. No, 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 no. No, no, no. Prince Rogers Nelson didn't look back. You don't look back to see how you're being accepted by the world and send out your things to everybody. It was no, just stop. Don't. You can't fake the funk. Anyway, so there's the dates and orders tweeting out about the Paisley Park After Dark to give thanks for all the good weather and all the love and support. The fact of the matter is that tweet was actually deleted. I don't know why, but they went back and deleted a lot of them. I think they were trying to erase the identity of certain people. Now, this is really interesting. So in Moline, the one the world knows as Prince Rogers Nelson, they want us to believe went down, had this Narcan, and was dying from an overdose, blah, blah. But then on April 16th, 2016, Marone Bakir posts, "That's how we roll" at Sex Addict 93. Great team. Thank you. That's because you had your Paisley Park After Dark party where you also tweeted that I am transcended. Yeah, that's what I thought. So then on Saturday the 16th, you guys, because remember, after the Moline, they're having the big Paisley Park After Dark, and supposedly this Prince is out there riding around in this purple, what is it, the guy from McDonald's, the big purple thing? That's what it looks like. Saturday the 16th, this FedEx thing was photographed in the trash. This is a delivery, a Saturday delivery, that's the SDR, to Kirk's house at 2178 Red Fox Circle that was photographed in the trash at Paisley Park. And it goes along with that very first picture of Kirk where he's wearing that black shirt and it's hanging up in the dressing room. I don't know if that's what he got, but in my mind, that's what he got, was his new black shirt because he's always wearing them. Anyway, he got something that was important enough at his residence to take over to Paisley Park on a Saturday delivery on the 16th. Let's see. On April 17th, they tweeted out Rekisto dress with fam like this. You can't miss. Now, with all this stuff going on, we're told that Prince Rogers Nelson has the flu, can't do the concerts. Marone's tweeting, "Great team. That's how we roll." Tweeting out Rekisto dress with team fam like this. You can't miss. No, with all this crap going on and somebody's dying and you're supposed to be saving them. No, you're trying to bring attention to what you're doing. So then here we get back into the investigation, whereas Kirk said that he did not see Prince on Sunday. Everybody alleges there was the party on the 16th, but then Kirk went on to say that he didn't see Prince on the 17th, that he didn't think he saw him again until the 19th, around 8 o'clock, when they had a meeting with Prince, Larry Graham, Marone, and Kirk. So Kirk said that Prince had canceled the shows on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of that week, the 18th through the 22nd, because of what happened in Atlanta, and they were trying to urge him to take a break. That doesn't go along with everything that I was saying, but that's what Kirk said. So now, you guys, what's important to know is on the 18th, there is another tweet. April 18th, right there, 2016. It says electricfetus.com. Sounds like you're making another call for Electric Fetus to deliver. That's what it sounds like to me. I'm just saying. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Don't hate it all. Love is the only way. Love rules. Anyway, April 18th to 16th, and during the concert, Electric Fetus was there. Electric Fetus, because again, the name is, as I mentioned, our creator is electric, the electric electrum. It's like this certain energy. And I think that when they were doing the transfer of energy, occultic, whatever it is that they do, that's why they call it Electric Fetus, because in essence, it's like somebody's soul or essence taking on the essence of somebody else, like an electric baby, if you will, like an electric fetus. And the fact that Hannah was pregnant and the person in the passport photo looks pregnant too, as I've shown on my hashtag funky, even when we ain't on Facebook, all the evidence in one place, somebody looks pregnant. So whether or not it goes together, I don't know, but like I always say, in my mind, it does. And though I'm in touch with the creator, I don't get all the answers because that would ruin the fun of looking, and then it would have nothing to do with my life and sole purpose. So 18th, Electric Fetus. Also on the 18th, you guys, Kirk is contacting Michael Schulenberg. Again, Mr. Mike. Not Michael T., not Dr. Schulenberg, but Mr. Mike. Now remember the Mike, the Schuler UK events. Mr. Mike, can you call me? Can you call me when you get a free moment? I want to talk some more, blah, 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 get some recommendations. And then on Tuesday, which would be Tuesday the 19th, Schulenberg allegedly says, "I have a number of openings. Let's schedule a visit," yada, yada, yada. Now, here, Kirk is texting, "Doctor, could we come in tomorrow night and do any blood test we can? Doctor, give me a time. We would love for you to be there with us. Can you give me your email as well, please?" Kirk, where would you love Dr. Schulenberg to be with you on the 19th? Okay. Because before you said you met with Prince on the 18th in this small room with Larry Graham. Excuse me. He said on the 19th he met him with Larry Graham. However, here on the 19th, he's texting him, excuse me, on the 18th, saying he'd love for him to be there with him tomorrow, which would be the 19th. And then on the 19th, as the text shows, Kirk is asking doctor, am I supposed to take all 3 of these meds? There are 3 bottles. Oh, never mind. The texts are right there. You can see that they were made from Kirk's phone, not Prince Rogers Nelson's phone. Should I take all 3 of these? There are 3 bottles. Come on, you guys. Now, listen, Schulenberg said on 418 that Kirk had texted, and this is what's important, you guys, is because Schulenberg said that Kirk made him aware on the 18th that Prince had an opiate problem. They never say he was an addict or this or that, just that he had an opiate problem because the Narcan is an opiate. So they were whatever. Just saying one thing doesn't mean another. The point is, Schulenberg takes accountability for being told on the 18th that this Prince, whoever it was, had an opiate problem. However, on 420, he turned right around and prescribed Valium because he says, after looking up the opiate withdrawal treatment on the computer, I issued a prescription for Valium. So that's how jacked up this is, because like I always say, if you guys have ever known or loved an addict, you know that they don't get treatment in a center until they are clean. You can't just substitute one drug for another, even if it's hydroxine or clonidine or Valium. You cannot do that. They have to be completely clean. There's too much liability, and people die trying to go from one drug to the other. And that was what was happening here with the psychopharmacology. It just is. And the other thing is, this Dr. Schulenberg that prescribed the Valium, as I mentioned in the beginning, prescribed that allegedly to Prince Rogers Nelson. However, those prescriptions themselves on the pill bottles, it says Prince R. Nelson, not Prince Rogers Nelson. So you don't get to assume anything. My doctor always prescribed in my name and my name only. So anyway, back to the 18th. You guys, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch reported that there was supposed to be concerts there, but then they got canceled. Now that could go with the Natalia Phillips print work, because there was supposed to be more concerts on the 18th, but then they got canceled. And so then you have Kirk lying about when he saw him on the 18th and 19th. But check this out. Kirk, let me just remind you, because I get lost in my own self. Let me slide back here real quick. Kirk said he saw Prince on Tuesday evening, the 19th, with Larry Graham and them. However, you guys, Graham stated the last time he saw Prince was on Monday, the 18th. Graham stated he came to Paisley Park so Prince could show him his new guitar that he, Graham, Kirk Johnson, Marone, and what they call Prince Nelson had eaten prior to coming to Paisley Park, and that they met in the small club, the MPG room, and blah, blah, blah. He said that was the 18th. Kirk said it was the 19th. Asking Graham to describe the night of the 18th, he does that. Now, this is what Ray Roberts said on the 18th. So Kirk and Graham are telling 2 different stories of the 18th and 19th already, just so you guys know. Ray Roberts, the chef, said on Monday, Prince had friends over to the house. That would be Monday, the 18th, including Larry Graham, Roberts, blah, 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 blah. So you got Ray Roberts and Larry Graham on the 18th and Kirk on the 19th. Now, looks like somebody deleted my text. That's interesting. Those had 2 texts in there that aren't there anymore, so that's intriguing. They took away my Bloomington connection. That's weird. I've never had anything come up missing out of my Google Docs before. That's so strange. I had 2 things in there that are gone. Josh and Hannah, I'll have to go back and look at their testimony. Josh and Hannah admit that they were with, what they say is they went to, I can't believe it's gone. They said on the 18th, which was Monday, Josh and Hannah said they went to the Chanhassen Theater with Prince and the family and the crew, and then they went to the Dakota Club and again to the Chanhassen Theater, and that was on the 18th. So between the 18th and 19th, you have all those lies. And then also they said that something about the Bloomington airport connection, and that's gone. There's only 2 big triangles on my thing. That's weird. So the 18th and 19th is all messed up. And here is, maybe it just moved. And they said, okay, and when he flies, is that his personal jet? And da-da-da-da-da. And she said it's closer to, I think it might be in Bloomington or something. So they're using an airport, which is close to Bloomington, which is by Dr. Boo's office, which is where he picked up the drugs on the 14th, where Kirk was seen at 4950 County Line Road. at the pharmacy picking up the Percocet on the 14th after he allegedly picked it up from Schulenberg in person. And don't forget, Prince picked up Judith at that time as well. So here I just attached the what they show as the history for the Bloomington, Minnesota pickup. What Bloomington, you guys, super important. The airport's there. The drug pickup 4950 is there. Now also Kirk's nephew, Sean Powell, the one they called Julius. According to the crime scene log, Sean Powell, his address is 7802 West 111th Street, Bloomington, Minnesota. So he lives out there, and he also could be a big African-American guy that could have been carrying a small line like a baby. Okay. Now, another something I found down, the next one down, you guys, is a Roger P. Nelson in Bloomington. Don't know who he is. He's related to Catherine Nelson, Teresa Nelson, Jeffrey Nelson. I do believe there's a Catherine Nelson in the investigation, if I'm not mistaken. Just another identity that could be used that came up in West Bloomington. So truly interesting that you got a P. Nelson, Roger P. Nelson, Prince Rogers Nelson. Could be anything, right? It's anything they want it to be. Now, also in Bloomington, you guys, when you read the file, you're going to read that Paul Podolsky, the Glam Slam manager, died shortly after Prince. And as I've disclosed on that video that is dedicated to him, the Paul Podolsky files, that file is, I believe, explicitly used as what they do is they expose what actually happened in the Paisley Park files in the Paul Podolsky file, only they rename the people and the individuals. And there's just a lot of shady stuff going on. And what they did is they did that investigation, said the fentanyl was self-induced and unwitnessed, which is what they called this death. And so they used the Glam Slam Paul Podolsky file as a precedence for the Prince Rogers Nelson death investigation, and that is that nobody could be charged because they couldn't find out where the drugs came from. So that's why his file came out before the actual investigation results. But anyway, those results from Podolsky's file hold some information saying that Hennepin County made the largest fentanyl bust not only in the state but in the country in Bloomington, where they found 3/4 of a gallon seized from Bloomington. This was just shortly after the Paisley Park fiasco. Carol Fikowski, she's a Hennepin County counselor there for substance abuse. She said that there were 36 overdoses in the last 2 years, that it was swift and surging in Hennepin County. So the media wants you to believe that Prince was popping these white pills that were hydrocodone for hip pain and jumping off pianos his whole life. And, you know, this, that, and the other, that Kirk got Percocet in his name on the 14th, not hydrocodone. And that those pills were laced with fentanyl, which is very, very expensive. And then you can't just lace someone's pills. And then when you go on to, like I've exposed, the DEA tests and everything showed that only some of the pills had, only one of them had fentanyl. The other ones had some hydrocodone, some fentanyl, lidocaine, some MMDA, whatever the party drug is, they also had, because what they were doing was manufacturing them, placing them all around Paisley Park. It's dirty and skeevy. MK Ultra stuff, y'all. Anyway, so, and then I go on to show the slide that, you know, fentanyl is, you know, they were using it to execute prisoners in Nebraska. Nebraska was going to be the first person to execute people that way. So a little goes a long way. And the bottle of water that was falling between this Prince's legs on the airplane is interesting, because in these emails that I'm about to show you, one of the people actually asks to use the new water for adrenal fatigue, which adrenal fatigue affects drug addicts. So, I didn't know the video was that long. So then, you guys, I go to show, because remember, Larry Graham and Kirk and everybody are telling different stories about what happened on the 18th and 19th. And then you can read the whole file. You'll never get an answer from Marone about what happened on those dates. There's no investigation anywhere. So I believe that day she was playing Prince one of those days. Schulenberg also says in his testimony, he says that when they came to the clinic that day, that he says this, and Prince left in the presence of Marone. Because you guys got to remember, when you're able to bring out different identities from people based on intellectual property, I think they're doing, it's crazy. It just is. I don't know how they would do it, but they just are. And like I said, you can see plainly that Kirk was wearing a wig and that he's wearing the Under Armour black clothing that are in the death scene photos. So because of the way they skew the the investigation and the names, they're actually referring to him as Prince and showing the pictures, and they're going to say, "Oh, we put it right in front of your face." Sure. Anyway, what's relevant about the emails on the 19th, you guys, is that we are to believe that on the 16th there was a party, on the 17th there was nothing, on the 18th Larry Graham met, but on the 19th Kirk met, and on the 19th also you've got Natalia Phillips, Julia Romanon, and Marone emailing with Stella Blue, who, if you read the investigation, you know that Stella Blue was accused of providing drugs. I don't know if it's connected with electric fetus or not. I'm just saying. So they were all three emailing, and then Marone goes on to say pick up in the garage, stuff like that. So there's all kinds of emails going on the 19th, which is relevant not only, so the emails are like 10:51 and 12:53, 10:51 in the morning, 12:53, and by 4:05 and 4:21, you've got Marone and Julia Ramadan writing back and forth. Talking about how somebody wanted somebody to sing the most beautiful girl in the world at Queen Latifah's BET Awards that year, blah, blah, blah. And Marone said, "Oh, ha, 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 did you tell him you're grounded?" Meaning not supposed to be seen. So what's relevant about that is on the 19th, they said Larry Graham and Kirk have their testimonies messed up, but these people who are playing Prince are back there emailing. Now, Kim Pratt, the limo driver, she basically said, and if you click on this link, she said right there in her link that the last time that she saw Prince before he died on the 19th. Take a listen to the links. According to her, she picked up Prince on the 19th, took him to watch an artist out to eat, to the Dakota Jazz Club, and then to the movie theater in Edina. Whereas Josh and Hannah said on the 18th, they went to a theater in Chanhassen, remember? Because they met with Larry Graham on the 18th. And then Kim is saying on the 19th that she picked him up and did all those things, whereas Kirk is saying on the 19th they were in the NPG room while all the emails and everything were going on. Yeah. Fonzie. Hey. No, it didn't go down that way, you guys. It's just how they put the whole story together. So there's two stories right there about what Kim Pratt said happened on the 19th. Also, in the DEA evidence, there are prescriptions that were ascertained on the 19th. They black out the prescriber's name, but I believe it was either Dr. Boo, because it says that he was prescribed Valachlor, which is something that Dr. Boo, I know I didn't say that right. Or is that the one for herpes? She said she prescribed antibiotic for the tooth and then the painkiller, and that was allegedly on the 14th, but the CVS pharmacy bags that they found in the trash on the 19th, they don't say who prescribed them, but there's the exact same drugs that Dr. Brew says she prescribed on the 14th. So, yeah, clindamycin, that's the one I meant, and I think the other one is for herpes. So when Kirk was contacting Dr. Schulenberg on the 18th and 19th, and all the discrepancies between who was where on the 18th and 19th, and then they find these trash CVS, not Walgreens, remember, you guys, CVS. So there's that description, and it goes on because what I'm showing here, you guys, and skim the evidence, I'm going to try to keep this a little bit shorter because this has a ways to go. It goes on to describe how the green blue capsules, those are the antibiotics that Dr. Boo prescribed, but yet they put them in the pill bottle that is marked Prince or Nelson to make them seem like they were the drugs that were found around the house. And then they also put the orange pills in there to make them look like they were the pills prescribed around the house. But those are the pills that Kirk got prescribed to him from the CVS bottles. Go check it out. I can't read through all the evidence. I show the bottles there. And again, remember that the name is Michael Schulenberg and not Michael T. Schulenberg. All this evidence here that I'm in, you guys, it talks about all the pill bottles being in Kirk's name with the oxycodone in them and everything. Not one of them says this is Prince Roger Nelson's house with Prince Roger Nelson drugs. No, it's all Kirk Johnson, man. Old man Johnson's farm. Controversy. So it goes on to talk about the yellow pill. There's Kirk's pills that were prescribed from Dr. Boo, CVS pharmacy again. And what's interesting, I think at the end I provide that CVS pharmacy at 4950 was doing business as a Medicare provider. So it had a doing business as a pharmacy. That, I don't know, seemed kind of weird to me. Then I go on to talk about Elizabeth Boo. You guys, she is a dentist. However, the another dual identity, because when you look up her address, it's given as 4717 Highway 61, St. Paul, Minnesota. And when you look up her building, the building says 4916. Really complements my dual identity storyline, don't you think? So when they went to go interview her, she was asked, she said, did they want to talk about the elevator incident with Prince, and asked if she needed an attorney. She said they had an appointment that day, that she was supposed to do a crown prep, that Kirk said he couldn't make it, and that she issued the painkiller Tylenol 3 with codeine and the clindamycin. And she didn't start work until 2:00. So remember that. So there's the text saying that she was open after lunch. And the fact of the matter is, we still have the plane saying that Kirk left at 2:32 when Schulenberg didn't write his prescription until approximately 1:30. And she didn't open until 2, and he got on the plane at 2:32 in Minnesota when she is in White Bear. So I explain all that right there. It could never happen. I show the maps and I show everything. You guys can see for yourself. She said he never came back to fix the pain of the cracked tooth. Asked how many times they talked on the 14th. She said once or twice, but actually, like I said before, if you look at the telecommunications, you can see that she called 2 or 3 times before the flight, and then again that night, because it said the detective asked why she called Kirk Johnson around midnight the night of the emergency landing. Dr. Booth said she had a feeling this would come, stating that she had read in the paper that Princess Lane had made an emergency landing. Now, how could she have read in the paper before midnight that night that his plane made an emergency landing and then called, because she knew she prescribed the Tylenol 3 with codeine, and said, I hope it wasn't the Tylenol that made the plane land. You did not read it in the paper before midnight to call on the phone again, liar. Just saying. I don't mean to call names, but don't lie. So, hoping it wasn't the toothache that made the plane land. Now, the very next thing she says is, she says also that Kirk Johnson, he told her, not only Schulenberg on the 18th, that Prince had an opiate problem. Dr. Boo said that she talked to Johnson. He called her Monday after the emergency plane landing, believing it to be Monday the 18th, when he was supposed to be in the small room with Larry Graham, or on the plane with Josh and Hannah, figure it out. And that she was made aware that Kirk had found some pills in the bag, blah, 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 and that she said he had a class 1 addict on his hands. But this last thing that she says is really interesting. According to Dr. Boo, Kirk said that Kirk had told her that Prince's upcoming appointment was with Kirk's doctor on the same day, yada, yada, yada. Dr. Boo said, a person doesn't get 10 Percocet and then start frothing at the mouth. Dr. Boo told Officer Lombardi that she didn't understand why Prince and Kirk would be at Walgreens picking up a prescription if Prince already had a bunch of fentanyl or whatever it was. Dr. Boo said Kirk Johnson told her that he was really sorry that he had gotten her into it. So she had knowledge of the fentanyl. She said she didn't know why they would be at Walgreens trying to get the pills when they already had a bunch of fentanyl. So she was obviously made aware of things on the 18th and 19th, when the whole conundrum of who went where and who was where and who wasn't where went down, right? Now, I threw in there for you the Galpin connection, because on Galpin is where the CVS is. And also there were 3, I don't know if those are vacant lots or properties that Tyco was trying to sell after the fact during the property dispute, but there was 3, I think they're vacant properties on Galpin Avenue. They had a lot of, it's that whole neighborhood over there that I think they're turning into like the whole Purple Rain neighborhood or something. Is all this land they bought up, because they had the whole thing planned the entire time so that they could, surge around. They had like 3 properties on Red Fox Circle where Kirk lives. It was a cul-de-sac. They owned all those too. So Galpin connection. Now, again, that's the 19th. Text from Kirk saying, can we come in tomorrow? Do any test we can, allegedly. Now, what's important is on the 20th, this is what the detective said that Dr. Schulenberg wrote in his files. Patient is a 57-year-old man who presents with a friend today, Kirk Johnson, for feeling antsy. Symptoms started today. When questioned if the Tylenol that he was taking contains any other ingredients, he said that he did not know. Independent sources have informed me that the Tylenol also contains hydrocodone. Dr. Schulenberg wrote right in his file on the 20th that he asked Prince if he was taking Tylenol, that his shakiness might be from stopping the Tylenol, and he asked him if there was any other ingredients in the Tylenol, and he said he didn't know. And then he also said that he was made aware by independent sources that the Tylenol contains hydrocodone, which would put somebody who is using Narcan for something else into withdrawal. So there's that. He goes through all that. I'm just pointing out the more obvious things. Continue to read the notes, and you see on the 20th that he prescribed clonidine, hydroxine, and Valium. Ridiculous, you guys. It would never happen for an addict. He noted the patient as 5'4", which is Kirk's height, and 109. And then gave the alleged addict IV fluids of clonidine, hydroxine, which is like Benadryl, which can also make you test positive for drugs. Yeah, and then said, have fun with your concert, man. Anyway, I put because they were using or abusing Suboxone, even if Prince had minimal opiate traces, because what they do is they show that this Prince that they were testing, Dr. Schulenberg goes on to say that he had traces of opiates in his pee. But the fact of the matter is urine. The fact of the matter is, like I said, hydroxine, as the next slide shows, the presence of Benadryl and other medications could possibly trigger a false positive for fentanyl, yada, yada, yada. So, like I said, I'm not coming to give you every single answer. I'm coming to tell you how shady the media narrative is and let you put the rest together yourself. Other possibilities, obviously, and with you can make up your own mind. Anyway, it's interesting. They go on to talk about how if you mixed all those drugs together, it could overdose someone, and that when you take the text that Kirk was texting on the 20th, doctor, should I take all these medications together? There are 3. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist, right? And here, Dr. Schulenberg says, yeah, he walked out. He appeared comfortable. He left with Kirk, and that was around 6:30. Now, here, Schulenberg says something very telling, you guys, and I mentioned it before. He says, prior to discharge, there was still, Prince and Kirk left around 6:30 because I had picked up my daughter at gymnastics at 6:45 over by Paisley Park, actually. So what did you actually just say, Dr. Schulenberg? They walked out around 6:30, and prior to discharge, there was still Prince and Kirk left around 6:30. So there was still You guys have to read how they hide these words in plain sight. And then he said he had picked up his daughter at gymnastics around 6:45. And to me, the way I read that, he transported Prince back to Paisley Park, and Kirk and Marone went to Walgreens to pace outside and wait for the prescription. And I'll prove that to you. So anyway, gives them all the drugs. You guys, if you're not looking at the slideshow, you're really going to miss out, because the next slides, they show the lookalikes. And I do believe that this was Sean Powell, or I'm not sure, Renville Wellington, or some of the lookalikes. I don't know them all. But in the first slide, you can see Kirk Johnson. He's slim, he's short. He even has one of those wig things on his head. It's like tan. You can see that you would put a wig over it, to have it stay on better. And as I showed you in the other, there's that screen of the wig around his head. And now on the other slide, because they slice and dice these things together, so even the CCTV video that they show as the last day alive, there's also another Kirk, as you can see in the one that's shaded a little bit more brown. You can see the first Kirk in the Under Armour outfit with the wig around his neck, and then the one next to it. This dude is gigantic. He looks like he weighs at least, 280 or something. And the old adage, which I do not say, but I'm only going to say this because I know that when I was in my life after life situation, the creator said to me that all this trickery that was going on at Paisley Park, that because the KKK, doesn't like people of color, any color, to begin with, that the creator, in fact, made a plan where they used the adage, they all look alike, back on them and tricked them that way. So assuming that all colored people look alike is how they do this trickery. So again, one Kirk is small and skinny and 5'4", and the other one is taller and way bigger. Look at the pictures, folks. Here's something that should blow your mind. It did mine. Throughout all the texts that were shown, we're never shown a text when this alleged Kirk is leaving, because I took this thing and I put it on slow-mo and I ran that CCTV over and over and over and over again to get these shots, you guys, and I looked at all of them that I could, and you can see that this alleged Kirk Johnson has a phone in his hand. But we're never told what he's texting on that phone. We're never told or shown any texts that are taking place during this time, which they allege is the 20th, during the appointment on the 20th. So I'm just saying, he has a phone in his hand. Pretty big doings, I thought. Next slide down is Dr. Schulenberg on slow-mo carrying a respirator. Yes, when Dr. Schulenberg is leaving the office towards the end of the video, when you screenshot it, you see him carrying this blue bag, and there's this little black thing that comes out and slides down around the bottom. I did some screenshots on it and some research, and it appears to be a respirator of which one would want to use when they were messing with pharmaceuticals and didn't want to inhale. As if you had to go to a cleanup scene and there was a bunch of drugs in the air and being, on someone's face and such, you don't want to breathe it in yourself. So that's why he's carrying that. And then, of course, there's the just when you thought you were safe Instagram post that was taken down, because just to show you guys, just to push it home, So that was all allegedly on the 20th. Check them out closer. Go and watch the CCTV video yourself. I also posted, there's a holographic 666 that appears in the screen I showed you guys, but I don't want to get off subject. So on April 20th, you guys, holy moly. I don't know if anybody will watch it this long, but people that really want to know will. So on April 20th, you guys, this is what Marone said. She said that she arrived at Paisley Park around 4:30 to take Prince to the doctor at 5. She was told by Kirk and Prince that she wasn't needed, and she left. She said she went back to her place at Country Inn and Suites, room 127, and that she came back around 7 p.m. to open the doors for the chef. That's what she said. Now, here's what Roberts had to say, the chef. I asked Roberts if he was at the studio on the 20th. Robert said Prince's assistant Marone told him to bring Prince food packed up. Robert stated he arrived at the studio around 7:30. He goes on to say that at about 7:45, 8 o'clock, that Kirk and Prince rolled up in the black truck and waved him in. However, what Marone said is that she let the chef in at 7 is a lie, because the chef himself said that he wasn't let in until 8, that he arrived at 7:30 and had to wait. Moreover, he goes on to say, Robert stated Kirk Johnson and Prince arrived at the studio and pulled into the studio. They waved Roberts in. Robert stated Johnson and Prince went to the rear entrance. Johnson walked through the studio and let Roberts in the front entrance. Now, Robert says that while they were at the studio, Bakir and Johnson were sitting in the media room around a table talking about who was going to be checking on Prince. Roberts explained that because Bakir asked Roberts to be at the studio around 8, Roberts stated because he was early, he saw Prince arrive at the studio. And so they allege that when Prince isn't feeling good, he doesn't want anybody seeing him. But what they were really saying is that because of the whole conundrum between Moline and the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, who died, who didn't, who's in a freezer carrier, who's not, it's the reanimation process that they're fooling with in the intellectual property, guys. So the whole thing is just a lie, as you can see. So she lied about when she got there and let him in. Also, the other thing is Kirk, when he testifies, he said that he dropped Prince off, and TMZ testifies it that way too, that Prince was dropped off at Paisley around 8 o'clock and they didn't know who it was, but Ray Roberts and everybody else reports that it was Kirk, and he drove him in, went around the back and came to the front. So then we've talked about the backpack and the purse and everything like that before. If you look closely at what I wrote, you'll see how Andrew, wait, I'm not there yet. Okay, so Ray said that they were upset because he saw Prince, and that lets us to know that they were doing the whole lookalike thing, because they obviously, with what's her face saying, did you tell him you were grounded when they did the Queen Latifah wanted me to sing the most beautiful girl in the world? She was grounded because they weren't supposed to be seen in public. So you guys, on the email on the 20th, they say that Prince was last seen at 8 o'clock, and then coincidentally, that starts with a C-O-N too, just like condom, con being the prefix, suffix being the dumb, condom. Julia Ramadan, the email that they say is Prince's, sends out an email to Phaedra Ellis Lampkins for $192 some odd thousand for reimbursements. And then that J.R. Ramadan is never heard from again. That's the last email, is at 8:03 on the night, the 20th, that they say disappeared, which is 420, by the way. 420 people are going to be partying. So I think they went to the doctor, tried to do the whole Prince transference thing, came back to the party. Things went awry at the party, because then at 3:41 in the morning, read the other emails, 3:41 in the morning, Kirk emails this JR person, Julia Ramadan, saying, we have a doctor working all care in-house, 3:41 a.m., okay? Now, under that, I have a link from Chris Gaither, where Chris Gaither says, Prince had already been, or he says he had already been dead since like 3 or so in the morning, and they waited until 9:30 to get a doctor to resuscitate him. It's a 40-second link. Click on that. And then, so what I'm saying is, with the email that Kirk put out there, we have a doctor working all care in-house, because Recovery Without Walls offers 24-hour in-house care. And then, like I said, Gaither says that he's been dead since 3 a.m. Check it out. Can't go wrong. Anyway, the way the media tells the story is that they all rushed over there to help Prince, and that Kirk made a call at 7:49 and 7:51, and that couldn't get a hold of Prince, and so then they all just bum rushed in and tried to save him. That's the story. What I wanted to tell you guys about those two numbers in my slideshow is that when the detective is researching those numbers, he has this to say: I was given two numbers that belong to Prince. The phone numbers blank and blank. The phone numbers were from Quest CenturyLink. I completed the subpoena, yada, 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 faxed it to Quest CenturyLink, and found out that those two numbers had been ported to Integra Telecom of Minnesota. Then he got a hold of Ann Tollefson with the Regulatory Affairs Department, and she faxed back some information with about 8 different phone numbers that were not the numbers that he was asking about. She faxed him the wrong paperwork that were referring to some other phone numbers that were associated with Paisley Park, but he was trying to get the numbers that were, I believe, called by Kirk. Because Quest and CenturyTel, when you look at the emails and you, I think, and I don't know, I haven't done the research, when you didn't used to have a text or a phone, you could use that computer online site where you could send a text online. I think that's what Quest and CenturyTel were. So if Kirk says he called those phones at 7:49 and 7:51 and nobody answered, and they were all concerned and had to go save Prince, that's what they were trying to investigate when they got the answer about all the other media lines. Because Ann Tollefson, as I've showed you before, she set up the intra-house phone system Jabber, so they could all talk on the same phone. I'm trying to talk fast so the video won't be that long. So they could all talk on the intra-house phone system and appear as different people and whoever they needed to be at the time. She takes responsibility for that on her LinkedIn, and I've made it public on the telecommunications files. What's interesting, you guys, is if you consider that the last time he was seen was 8 o'clock, the email was sent at 8:03, and then they have Dr. Schulenberg texting Kirk, though they say it's in the morning, it's at 8:15, and Kirk answers Schulenberg and says, I'm here with Prince, giving him something to take the edge off. So they try to present that as if it's 8:15 in the morning, because they don't think that we already know that this other Prince was dead since 3:30 in the morning, like Chris Gaither and I have discovered. It's a lot of different scenarios, you guys. I know it's hard to keep up, but like I said, if you want to know the truth, I mean, this is it. What's important to know, you guys, is Schulenberg said that on Friday at 8:17 p.m., even though the time fits with what they were saying in the AM, he said he got a call from Phaedra. There's the text where after he got that call from Phaedra, he hit up Kirk saying, got a call from Phaedra, hope it's legit. She had talked to you. If you were running a legit Paisley Park anything, would you say hope it's legit? No, you would not. It just cracks me up. So then the detective asks if Phaedra was in California, and he says, I don't know, because everybody, she had a San Jose area code, but everybody has a cell phone these days. They wanted her to reach back out to Kornfeld. I believe Dr. Howard Kornfeld, was already at Paisley Park. They discovered this person, Prince, was trying to have some distress. As Gaither said, they tried to reanimate this person. It didn't work. And that's when Kirk's phone records start calling Oh My God Media and all these other movie making places so they can make a little movie of their own. So I think I skimmed the thing in the beginning where Dr. Schulenberg says that in the fall of 2015, when Kirk allegedly first started contacting him to see if he would be interested in helping out his boss, he said, I had that cell phone, those texts, but that cell phone took a swim in the Dominican River, if you know what I mean. So anyway, there's the text of the stairs, you guys. I've explained that Schulenberg says that he does not see that text until the next morning, but that is BS, because he said that he was up talking the second phone call with Phaedra at 10:47. And then the text came in at 9:38, so there's no way that he didn't see it. Read it for yourself. It's all very telling. There's the 3 bottles, the fact that the bottles are marked in the name Prince R. Nelson, not Prince Rogers Nelson. And as I mentioned before, even the media, the detectives wrote the bottles were in the name Prince Rogers Nelson. It's on one of my other videos. But you can't just assume that somebody's name with all these identities flinging around. So, and as I've shown you guys before, if you take the name Prince R. Nelson and look right in the middle, it's CERN. And as I mentioned before, it goes with CERN right in the middle. Also, the reason why he used the CERN bubble chamber as a depiction on the Graffiti Bridge album, it's to show breaking through the spooky electric haze that's in the world, the lie that's on the world, and breaking through. And this is just part of it. It's how great he is. He's going to expose himself in the coolest ways because that's what funky is funky does. Funky even when we ain't. That's my hashtag. Seriously, check it out on Facebook, you guys. It's hashtag funky even when we ain't. It's all one word, and all of this evidence is all in one place. So anyway, there's all the texts in the media between the 19th and 20th and how Kirk took the pills, the 3 bottles, and sent him over to his house at Red Fox Circle, which during the investigation, Charlene Hayes, his alleged aunt, was allowed to go get. I don't know how shady things can get before you realize that what I'm saying is the truth. All these texts that came in on 421 after, they were all to the JR. Every text that they show you on here on the investigation is to JR, because Julia Ramadan, the former model assistant 2314 that I showed you in the beginning that was playing Prince, she said she set up that email for Prince to use because he was all shy about his identity and yada, yada, yada. That's a lie, you guys. It's her. And also, I don't know who it is. One of the assistants, I can't remember, said that Julia Ramadan, was fired. Might have been Chris Gaither, one of the guys, said that Julia was taken out and then brought back by Phaedra. So even if they were using that email back in the day and were able to connect it, then they started using it again when she was brought back by Phaedra. Those emails that are to JR are to Julia Ramadan. That's the way I see it anyway. All of these incoming ones, and like I said, the last one going out was 803. And then if you pay attention to the videos, you know that Chris Gaither and everybody else said that Phaedra was vetting Theo London and Chris Gaither and everybody else. And that's why Theo got fired and was replaced by Phaedra, because of his criminal history and his credit scores. And she also said, Phaedra, that she was from Silicon Valley and that she could do anything with the computers that she needed to do. And that's why that last email at 803 is $192,000 reimbursement for her shady self. So anyway, now the whole media narrative, you guys, I want to say again, is that they rushed over. Kirk called at 7:49 and 7:51. They couldn't get through. They were concerned because they heard from Prince, but listen to what Roberts had to say. I asked Roberts what Prince would do for breakfast. Roberts stated Prince would usually get up around 2 p.m. because Prince would stay up late. Roberts stated Prince would eat whatever, blah, blah, blah. But the fact of the matter is, nobody would have been concerned, because as you read through this investigation file, everybody says that they know they didn't go to Paisley Park much before 2 o'clock in the afternoon, because this Prince was a night owl, only slept for 3 hours at a time to keep him from getting into actual REM sleep, more programmable that way. Read your MK Ultra results on my 1+1+1 is 3 link of links. Anyway, so nobody would have been surprised if they couldn't hear from Prince at 7:51 and 7:49 because he didn't get up until 2. Not only that, Kirk had said under investigation that Prince didn't eat breakfast, so there was no reason for the chef to be here that early. So that means that Ray Roberts was there during the morning of the 21st as well, even though they say he's not. So, and then Andrew Kornfeld goes on to tell us that he, Kirk, and Marone had breakfast together, and they were like, okay, let's just go over there, blah, blah, blah. And they wanted to give Prince all this privacy, that they arrived at 9:15. And he waited in a room for about 15 minutes, yada, yada, yada. I've told those stories before. However, this is where I go to show you the time of the arrivals of the officers and things which don't match up with the scenario either, because the next slide, Detective Hastings, she and 2 adult males arrived at Paisley Park around 9 a.m., approximately 45 minutes before the 911 call. Go on to talk about how Andrew's backpack was found in a back room, and the next scenario tells of it being, one is in an office, the other one is on the couch in the back room. That's number 60 and number 8 slides in the back room. Now, Andrew's full backpack report is there with the Google link. If you watch the video, you know. He had drugs not only in his backpack, but on his person, as he was experienced in psychopharmacology. And he also carried the Psychedelic Explorer Guide by James Fadiman. So, asking Kornfeld about the others at Paisley Park, he said he didn't know the others. The doctor arrived after he, Kirk, and Marone arrived. He said the doctor just showed up and he had no idea the doctor was coming. That would be Dr. Schulenberg, allegedly, from the way the story is being told. So, and then also they say that Dr. Schulenberg said that he was just there by pure coincidence to give some drug information. But then also the other story is that he showed up to bring the test results because he didn't have a secure email, even though the other text had Kirk asking him for his email earlier. So it's whatever fits in the scenario. Kirk goes on to say what's really relevant, you guys, is that Kirk said at one point there was security at Paisley Park, but Prince was very self-conscious of being watched, so he shut it off. That the security cameras around and keypads around Paisley Park had been made non-operational. Kirk said that the gate has a remote like a garage door opener, and there was no way to track people coming in and out. If you listen to Chris Gaither's Justice Crew on YouTube, that is an absolute lie, because he said it was like Mission Impossible over there at Paisley Park, and that the Prince Rogers Nelson was watched at all times, and that nobody but Kirk and Marone had those door openers or something to that effect, and that there was security. Also, if you look at the Carver County incident report, all the reports of the police going over there and doing checks for fire alarms and stuff like that, they had something to say about entry and how they had to get entry to the gates too. So there's lies about security and why there's no cameras. So anyway, so we know Ray Roberts was there. And then the next slide down is actual arrival at Paisley Park. Now, I took this picture and put it in here, you guys, not because of the people with Tyka and whoever else is there. I don't even know who all those people are. But point is, look at the grounds, look at how Paisley Park looks now, and look how it looks in the pictures. The ground, the cement is all cracked. There's little bushes with no leaves, no nothing. Nothing is done. And if you go and you look at the rest of the investigation photos, there's tire tracks in the water. There's leaves all over. It's all decrepit and not cared for and everything. And look at the way that it is now, is what I'm saying. That's why I put that in there, because nobody was taking, it was just the other White House, drug running, doing all kinds of stuff that you guys would never expect. So check that out. And then the thing is too, when you look at those reimbursements that were done to Phaedra, the $192,000, there's like I think almost $4,000 to True Green, which I can only assume is like a landscaping place, but nothing was being done to Paisley Park. So that's a joke too. So anyway, here, Detective Meyer says on 4/21 at about 9 a.m., he received a phone call from Sergeant Brunig, who said he needed investigative assistance. I need to stop talking so fast. Assistance in that Prince Rogers with a D, R-O-D-G-E-R-S, was deceased. And that was at 9 a.m. And remember, I said Hastings had arrived at 9 as well. And then Hennepin County Sheriff's Report, next slide, you have Todd Turpett being contacted at 9:10 a.m. That's when they called for photos, was at 9:10 a.m. 911 call, as we were told, was made at 9:43, and there's the 3-page 911 call for you to look at. The thing that I want to point out is that on the first page, they say that they're at Prince's house on the 6th line, yet the dispatcher, Emily Colstocks, doesn't know where they are. So anyway, they call the person not breathing, and they call the person dead. And on the 3rd page of the joke of a 911 call, the lady answers and she says, "Dispatch, Kaylee." And Shirley says, "Yeah, Kaylee, this is Shirley at Ridgeview. You can cancel anybody going to Autobahn. Confirm DOA. Dead on arrival. Confirm DOA. Cancel the ambulance." Okay, that's interesting, because when you're reading Sergeant Brunig's report, he says Hovarth, Hastings, along with the Ridgeview Ambulance and Chanhassen Fire Rescue were dispatched to Paisley Park. So that was according to Brunig. Now at Brunig, it's interesting too, you guys, and this is how you know that they're talking about other scenarios, because Hovarth will say that he arrived with Hastings and Ridgeview Ambulance and Chanhassen Fire. Hastings goes on to report that he arrived with Johnson and Fire Marshal Lifton, Chief Lifton, who just happened to be driving around with Chief Johnson that day, a couple minutes away from Paisley Park. Sure they did. So anyway, after the ambulances were canceled, then all the people show up. I go to tell you, and you guys got to look through this yourself, so I'm going to skim. What's important to know about it is that when Josh and Hannah are being interviewed, they say that they were actually living at Paisley Park. In the time frame that I have here of arrival, Hannah and Josh were called at 9:47. And so that's one scenario. And the other scenario is that they were already there and that they had heard from Kirk coming to Paisley Park. And the other scenario is that Marone called. So it's all wrong. They go into talking about how Chief Johnson arrived first, did the CPR, how they said that they tried to save his life. and do the CPR, but there's actually vomit in his throat. So you can't do CPR on somebody who has vomit in their throat. So you know that that would be a lie. And also, it says, the detective wrote, I continued to read the record from 421 and learned that no AED was used. And that's the paddles that we were talking about earlier in Moline. So too many details to give here, you guys. But when Fire Chief Johnson arrived, they credit him with being the one who pulled Prince out of the elevator to do the CPR. However, I didn't get into the body position or anything like this in this. But the fact of the matter is, Marone, Kirk, and allegedly Andrew had already found Prince in the elevator. And so then you tell me why, when Kirk Johnson, or excuse me, not Kirk Johnson, Fire Chief Johnson goes and finds Prince, why he pulls him out of the elevator, why he says that he was face up against the back of the elevator with his arms down to his sides. Read the books, you guys. It can't be. It's all, and then they talk about how his body was stiff, and that's because all the space heaters around the house, they were trying to warm the body that was in the carrier freezer from earlier. And then even after that, as you guys may or may not know, with the space heaters put off that carbon dioxide or monoxide or whatever it is, and that's why Chief Johnson said that he was taking Detective Hastings to the basement to check for carbon monoxide levels. So a lot of shady stuff. You go, I got to skim because holy moly, this is 2 hours. I didn't know it. So all their arrival times are there, you guys. And what's really important when you're looking at the arrival times is how many references there are to Kirk Johnson. Kirk is called Kirk Johnson, Kirk Anthony Johnson. These people go to say that he led them around to open doors and guide us through the search. Johnson was the chief of security and close associate of Prince. However, the next one says he's a high-level staffer who was close to Nelson and had keys for the property. The other one says, also in the lobby was a gentleman I recognized as Kirk Johnson. I've communicated with Johnson in the past regarding concerts at Paisley Park and for logistical purposes, and he was someone I knew to be the event coordinator and responsible for the building and grounds of Paisley Park. There, I think they were talking about the lookalike Renville Wellington, because in the telecommunications reports, they called the groundskeeper Renville Wellington. So they're all playing each other, you guys. And when you read all the timing of everybody, at first there's 3 people in the lobby, Marone, Kirk, and Andrew, and then it goes to 4 people, and then it goes to 5 people. And every bit of this is in my slideshow. Also, what's shady, you guys, is when they allege that Tyka was notified. Kirk said that he couldn't notify her by phone. So this Detective Nucci said that she took and met up with Hastings, and they went to go notify Tyka. And on the way there, they were notified that Tyka was notified and then came back to Paisley Park. However, when you read Detective Hastings' report, who was allegedly with Detective Nucci going to notify her, he says that he went, but he drove his own vehicle. And more than that, he comes back and he says that he provided a break for Detective Horvath from approximately 11:25 to 12. Horvath says Detective Hastings relieved him from 12:29 to 12:50. So where is the truth? Is it with Elizabeth Pride on the Big White Rabbit channel, or is it with the mass media narrative? You guys, I even went so far, as you can see in the slideshow, to look up the weather on April 21st in Chanhassen, and there it is, slightly rainy, et cetera, et cetera. You can see the trailer from the back. This is what I want you to see on these slides down here towards the bottom. Where the carrier is put up next to the building, you can see that there is a little door on that slideshow where all the people are lined up outside the fence there on the 21st. There's a little door that goes into where that carrier truck would be. And that was actually the residence. When they refer to the residence of Paisley Park, that's where they were keeping him. That was his residence. Believe me. I can't expound on that right now, but it is what it is. Also, you guys, I want to jump back to the phone real quick, because the same 2 phone calls, CenturyTel, Integra thing that I was just talking about with Ann Olofsson, when you're going through the investigation, we're told that Andrew Reinhardt's a superfan pharmacist from New York, called Paisley Park 28 times from noon to 12:50 on the 21st. And so then the detective goes to make a request on those phone records, and that's when he was returned all those wrong phone records from Ann Olofsson, because they had their wires crossed because the numbers had been ported out. So they were trying to hide the fact that this Andrew Reinhardt is a pharmacist. Pharmacists have access to fentanyl. And he called 28 times. Now, what's really interesting, you guys, is Howard Kornfeld keeps a New York address too, as you can see right below the information on Andrew Reinhardt's. And what I did is I lined up Andrew Reinhardt's address at 3210 Beaver Drive and then 16 West 16th Street of Howard Kornfeld. And according to the map, they're almost a straight shot from one another. What do you think about that? An hour and 13 minutes away. 13. What do you know? Andrew Reinhardt's. He was kind enough to return a text to me. I actually hit him up on Facebook Messenger behind the scenes, and I asked him why he called, and he said the same thing it says in the media story, that he was a super fan and thought foolishly that he could get a hold of a receptionist or something and find out what was going on at Paisley Park. I said, but you called between 12 and 12:50, and it wasn't announced on TV until roughly, I think, 1 o'clock, because I made my Facebook post at 1:16, and I know that that was right after it happened. And he lives on the East Coast, and I live on the East Coast. And I said, so why did you call from noon to 12:50? And he said, I heard it on the radio. I don't think the media announced it on the radio. If I'm wrong, you guys have to correct me. So it sounded like a lie to me, though I did appreciate him getting back to me on Messenger. He said that the FBI asked him the same question I did. So because it sounds like BS, and what smells like BS usually is BS. So just saying, they're a straight shot from each other and an hour and 13 minutes away, which is the same as the 13 that I'm talking about with the 13th Merovingian bloodline. Now that I've done my first 2 hour and 20-minute video, holy moly. Man, you guys, it's a big deal. And I'm sure very few people will watch this entire video. And the more people that share it, the more people that can know the truth. And that is that the facade that we live in, that the government is going to help, that Building Back Better BBB, which is 666, which I've told you guys before. If you haven't, I'm begging you to go watch the little 20-minute video I made prior to this one that explains the Kabbalistic writing, the name of King David, Da Vinci, and the fact that I feel like on November 13th of this year, it's, I don't know, it's pretty big doings. And I relate the date to the biblical New Testament Christian scripture of 1318, you guys. And when you take the World War I, the date is 1914. If you add 9 plus 4, you get 13. Okay, stay with me. If you multiply 4 times 9, you get 36. Plus 2, that's 38. So 1914, stay with me. 1914, 9 times 4 is 36, plus 2 is 38. Okay, so you have a 38, and 9 plus 4 is 13. So within that 38, 13, you can actually get 13, 18. That's just the way gematria works. So out of World War I, 1914, you have 13, 18. Now, in 1936, Pope Jorge, Georgie Porgy, who goes by Francis, because it's not only the name of Prince's dad in the movie, Francis L., Francis has CIA in it. And because they are a part of the CIA, it is what it is. That's why he chose Francis. He said it was because of his humility, but it's to hide his real name and identity. However, he was born in 1936. So 9 plus 6 is 15, plus 3 is 18, and then 1 and 3 of the 1936 is 13, 18. Do you understand what I'm saying? Go back and watch the video. You can see the math. Same thing with 1939. Okay, you have the same thing. 9 plus 9 equals 18, and then 13. It's all the dates of the wars, as well as the date of 1936, which Jorge was born, relate to the number 1318, which relates to 666. And the 666 relates to 2022, which is the year we're in, because if you look at the year with a curly 2, shoop, it's like a backwards upside down 6, which is 666. And I explained that on the video, you guys. And I know it sounds trippy. It is what it is. Numbers are like letters. It's electric word life. And when you've had a life after death experience, and the Creator talks to you with personal hearings and personal supervision, and you have a sole purpose No matter how hard it is to get that sole purpose out or to get you guys to understand, that's what I'm going to try to do, because I know that things are coming. And like, I come on here and I say stuff about the Illuminati and 13th Merovingian bloodline, and the fact that they use the name Meron and the name Julia Ramadan, which is eternal heat in Arabic or something like that. So they use all these code names and words, and that's why, Prince Rogers Nelson why he changed his name to the artist, and why when the writing of the name King David breaks down to the name Da Vinci, and why if you turn Da Vinci upside down, it spells out Vatican, and they use the same numbers to display their Genesis 4:24, 70 times 77 revenge, which is actually the name of King David, which is spelled Dalet Bob Dalet, and because those look like sevens in Hebrew, it's all what I explained. It is what I say. I love you guys for listening. I love you for trying to understand. I love you just because I love you and I have a lot of love in my heart. But I don't know. I think I'm all talked out. I think I'm finally all talked out. Just no matter how few and far it is between me making these videos and things, just know that I'll never stop. I'll be back with something new to say, something new to try to teach. And you guys, I'm a 51-year-old woman in this world trying to do what the Creator tells her to do. I'm not trying to be something I'm not. This isn't about being YouTube popular. It's about sharing the truth of the Creator of God to the world, and how He's going to expose Himself, and how the trick that's on the world is to get you to believe in some dude named Jesus and Christianity, and to profess on a false idol. And when I stood there in heaven, that's what they told me. And so now that I remember that, that's what I have to tell you guys, is you have to love your Creator, not some false idol that the world tells you died for you and replaced the very Creator for you, and took your place so that you can go be a sinner and do this and that and that and the other. Come on, you guys. What sounds more realistic? A Creator of indescribable dimensions and indescribable beings that can do and be and say and act in any way He wants, that allowed a spooky electric to run a little bit of game on you to see what kind of soul you really are in this world and who you really want to be. Think about the live concerts when He said, "Oh yeah, if I gave it to you, what would you do with it?" What will you do with the truth, you guys? Don't just call me some crazy girl because what I'm saying makes you uncomfortable. Look into it. Look into the fact that Constantine wrote and promoted the Bible in 1611, which is the opposite of 9/11. You guys, that it's all there. I've talked about it in all the videos. I don't want to be redundant. Like I said, the suffix being con, the prefix being dumb, con dumb. It's why with the voting right now and the whole abortion and this and that, there is a plan on the world, but it's to bring the Creator to expose who He is. But He needs you to help. You guys got to believe that He cares enough about each and every soul that He created, that He's trying to help by allowing me to come here and tell you these things. I don't care if it's embarrassing. I don't care if people call me what they call me. I don't care. I don't care. I know it's all true, and I know that someday soon, very, very soon, that you guys are going to be able to feel it and see it with your own hearts. So I'm just trying to be brave. And I'm all talked out and tired, and I got to go. I'll see you back again. Share the video, you guys, okay? It's a lot of hard work when you, like I say, try to read the investigation and then go read what I did. Share it. Show love.